the real question is who it's going to, right? And I think that's one of the biggest pieces that we're looking at is, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He's the one who denies having any talks, but then says that Iran is reviewing the ceasefire plan. Almost all other most all other messaging has come from state-sponsored Iranian media. It's not coming from some specific center of gravity supreme leader that can provide that overarching message for the country itself. So it makes it difficult this time.
Then what do you make of this Axios story, Wayne, that the president might be attempting to end it in a way that would include one last and large final show of force?
Yeah, I still, when I talk about the amount of risk that comes with putting boots on the ground, I still stick with that. Putting boots on the ground is one of the things that could at least put at risk some of President Trump's legacy, because at that point in time, you're allowing people to start looking back to 2003 Operation Iraqi Freedom. And nobody wants to have that long protracted war, so I think that's a fear that has to be addressed politically. But I do think that some level of decisive escalation option sets could potentially be there. Massive last phase strike campaigns, large-scale coordinated air campaign to hit remaining targets of missile stockpiles, launchers. Think about like a 30 to 40% uptick, similar to maybe something that happened earlier on in the first 6 days of the conflict. But really, or even violent destruction of Natanz and Fordel. I think I've actually talked with you about this before as well. Is if it's really about uranium enrichment, that those are the areas where that is actually taking place. And if that is something where, okay, we've already done it with Operation Midnight Hammer when that took place, but now if it was a true just blanketing of those areas to reach those areas deeper than the mountain that we did not hit last time.
Wayne, thank you so much for joining this morning. That's retired Army Colonel Wayne Sanders of Bloomberg Intelligence. Let's shift gears now to tech news. Shares of computer memory, as I pointed out earlier, in storage makers are slumping. Google said yesterday its new turbo quant technology can limit the amount of memory required to run large language models by a factor of 6. Bloomberg Tech's Caroline Hyde joins us for more. Caroline, I feel like everything I've been reading is kind of been pouring cold water on this, saying like it doesn't make that much of a difference, but still for a second day running, these stocks are taking a hit.
Can I take a wild bet? You maybe heard Jevons paradox a couple of times again. It's like DeepSeek all over. You sitting with JP Morgan saying, look, if you can do more with less, we just do more. It just means we're going to use these models even more. It just means that the amount of AI accelerators will continue to expand. And actually, SK Hynix, Samsung, Micron will continue to see significant demand for their chips. The bottleneck has been the anxiety, and maybe we get a bit of profit taking. So I do think that's notable. Also, when you say it's new, look, Google's been publicizing what TurboQuant can do this week on X. It was actually last year that they first publicized about it. So you've been in the know, and if you've been really in the weeds on these stocks, then you perhaps would have understood the fact that we could do 6 times as much with certain memory going forward. But look, a lot of retail names, a lot of others have gone into what have been ultimately momentum trades. I mean, Micron's up 300% last year. You've got some of these Asian names up 700%. No wonder there's a bit of maybe a bit of profit taking.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much of this is just about these things have run up massively? The amount of times that I've talked about Jevons paradox in the past year that I never thought I would. So elsewhere, I mean, Google related, Meta and Google found liable in this social media addiction case. The amount that they're paying, I mean, it's peanuts for them, right? Meta must pay $4.2 million. Google owes $1.8 million. I mean, that's truly nothing for them. So are there other implications? Could this be more damaging for them down the road?
Could it be a tobacco-like moment is what people are trying to worry about. Look, the stock market would say no, and actually saw the shares trade a little bit higher yesterday, even after the findings. But this is going to be knock after knock, headline after headline. Are these companies now going to take each and every case as it comes? A war of thousands of claims are going to come from individuals, from schools, from states. And yes, as Matthew Schettenheld, who works for us over at Bloomberg Law, has said, and time again, this is probably the best they had in terms of resiliency of court cases.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and simulcasting on X Spaces. If you have a question, please type it in the chat or ask for the mic on X Spaces. Thank you for joining. Please share the links. Ask your social media to follow me. You can follow me on X, GETTR, Substack, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, TikTok. There's many modalities that you can watch or listen to my work, including Apple Podcast, and Podomatic. I also have archived audio versions of my podcast on my website under Broadcast Radio. You can watch the live streams under Broadcast Live, and you can read some of the generated news under Broadcast Paper. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. So the big news here is that there's no peace deal, and oil is ticking up. New York session hasn't opened up yet. We have approximately 21 minutes to go before the open session, but the futures market for the natural gas is trading at 2.982. It's below that 3 level, so 3 is a resistance level. I'd like to see natural gas at around 2.8, 2.7. It wants to go down, but because of the problems in the Middle East, it's hovering right now just below the 3 range. Now, CL, which is the future contract for WTI, oil is trading at $94.09 right now. It wasn't that long ago when it was trading at $88 a barrel. So it's a very volatile market if you're trading oil futures or natural gas futures. Some of the ETFs that I've been looking at are UCO for longing oil. That's trading right now at about 41.17 or so at the moment. It closed yesterday at 39.46. So it's going to take a little while before the ETF will update in its price. But right now we have pre-market pricing. So if you want a long oil, you want to take a look at UCO. If you want a short oil, you want to take a look at SCO. Both of those ETFs are 3 times leverage. So there's going to be leverage decay if you hold it for a long time. And right now, SCO is trading at approximately $8. Now, in terms of natural gas, you want to look at oil or cold. Oil is also a leveraged ETF. I believe it's 3 times leverage. That's trading at 16. It's trading at about 16.62 or so. And cold, which is a short for natural gas, that's trading at around 21.25 or so. So with that, we're going to cover the news. There's going to be a lot going on. The Israelis killed the Navy leader last night or early this morning. We're going to go over that. Before I do, please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. I have thousands of videos out there. They're telling you my perspective on the news. And if you pay attention to me, you're going to learn how to improve your health and wellness and how to benefit from the news financially. And don't you want to be in a situation where you're not a victim, right? Please go to my store and get the magnesium and zinc. This is a very powerful supplement that will boost up your immune system and help with the brain function. A lot of people don't know that magnesium is super important for your brain function. So please take my advice, get the magnesium and zinc from my store. Now, also, you can find it. Vitamin C and magnesium. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin because vitamin C cross-links with collagen if you drink water. The water, vitamin C, and the collagen cross-links and improves your dermal layer. Now, vitamin C and magnesium also helps the immune system, and magnesium increases your brain function, helps with your brain function. Now, you can stack them together or you can take them separately. I recommend you stacking them together to get the max benefit. In addition, magnesium also improves the efficacy of vitamin D3. Your vitamin D3 will work better for you when you take the magnesium from my store. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C and magnesium. And lastly, if you're 40 years of age or older, your metabolism is run down. You're not producing as much energy in your cells, and your neurons need to be protected. A way to slow down the aging process and to improve your health is to take the vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins are needed for the electron transport chain within your mitochondria, within your cells, to produce the ATP, the energy source that you need for proper cellular processing. Vitamin B complex will boost up your cellular metabolism. That means that you're going to have more energy, and guess what? You're not going to be fat, all right? And then vitamin B complex also helps with protecting the neuron through vitamin B12. Your neurons get stressed. When they get stressed, they have a tendency to degrade. And you want to protect those neurons. A great way to do it is to take the vitamin B complex. So this is a great supplement to help to improve your cellular health, raise your energy levels, and protect your neurons. So please go to my store, get the vitamin B complex. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the website. Click the link in the description of this video or all my videos. Make sure you use discount 5, all caps, discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. I want you to save some money, and I want you to get these supplements, take them the way I'm taking them, and you're going to slow down the aging process. I'm in my 50s. I don't look 50, right? So if you just take my advice, you will benefit from it, just like with the markets, all right? So right now, as we're approaching the opening for New York, the equity futures market, it looks down by about 52 points for the S&P 500. So the futures market at the moment is trading at 6,555. New York's going to be opening up in approximately 15 minutes. So what I want to do is play this clip by Fox News talking about Iran's Navy leader killed. I think it was last night, early this morning.
Over Jerusalem this morning, sending Israelis to shelter as Iran targets the region with retaliatory strikes.
But President Trump reportedly wants to find a way to end this war quickly. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yanks joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. We start with breaking news. IRGC Navy Commander Ali Reza Tangsiri was targeted overnight in a strike in the city of Bandar Abbas, Iran, according to a senior Israeli official. Tangsiri was directly responsible for commanding the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. I'm told his senior operational leadership, including intelligence and operations chiefs, were at a covert Navy command center. That, again, according to a senior Israeli official. We understand the battle damage assessment is ongoing, but they believe that he was killed in this strike. It was a targeted strike based on U.S. and Israeli intelligence that continues, according to this source, to demonstrate how deeply the U.S. and Israel are capable of using intelligence operations to penetrate IRGC leadership. Now, this does come as President Trump says Iran wants a deal, and Iranian state media says that officials in Tehran have rejected Washington's ceasefire proposal. The Wall Street Journal reports that President Trump has told associates in recent days that he wants to avoid a protracted war in Iran, and that he hopes to bring the conflict to an end in the coming weeks. Intense U.S. and Israeli strikes pummeled Iran over the past 24 hours alone, going after more of the storage facilities for Iran's ballistic missiles and targeting a number of positions in the Iranian capital of Tehran. You can see this video here provided by the Iranian Red Crescent. President Trump saying this on Wednesday about the operation.
But I tell you, we're winning so big, nobody's ever seen anything like we're doing in the Middle East with Iran. And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us. There's never been the head of a country that wanted that job less than being the head of Iran.
New video shows those U.S. strikes that are ongoing against Iran's military infrastructure. This video released by U.S. Central Command, it says more than 10,000 Iranian military targets have been struck since Operation Epic Fury began nearly 4 weeks ago. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper added that 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production sites have been destroyed. Cooper added this about Iran's Navy.
Before we continue with the whole Iranian Navy leader getting killed, it's really important to step back and take a look at what did Sun Tzu say? Is it Sun Tzu? Yeah, I think it's Sun Tzu. In The Art of War. When you are putting your soldiers into a situation and you have to win, make sure the soldiers have no way out. So they fight to the death. But you also have to think about, if you want your enemy to be defeated on the battlefield, you have to give them an opportunity to get out. Because if they are in a corner and there's no way out for them, they will fight to the death. Now, they could lose or they could win. All right? So when you're attacking someone, you want to give them an opportunity to escape. But if you put your troops in a situation where you have to win, it's better to put them in a situation where they can't retreat. So they fight to the death. Now, this is in The Art of War. And let's think about what Trump is doing here with Iran. He's giving them an opportunity to we use the term de-escalate, but to escape from the situation. Now, if we put them in a situation where it's a do or die, then they're going to fight harder. Now, if the leaders think no matter what they do, they're going to get killed, they're going to fight. They're not going to take a peace route. Because if they take the peace route, they're afraid their people are going to kill them because of what they did to the protesters and, the atrocities of the regime. If they stay and fight, they're going to get killed by the United States military. So they're in a do or die situation.
Have roamed regional waters, threatening and harassing global shipping. But those days are over because we've now destroyed 92% of the Iranian Navy's largest vessels. They are not sailing, and my operational assessment is that they've now lost the ability to meaningfully project naval power and influence around the region and around the world.
The Iranians are continuing their ballistic missile attacks against Israel, launching 7 separate barrages since this morning. You can see in this video here, the Israelis are hunting down these launching positions. They still say that more than 150 of those launchers do remain. We have some aftermath of that explosion there, but also here in Israel following yet another cluster munition strike against the civilian population. This is just outside the city of Tel Aviv. At least 6 people were wounded at this site from a direct cluster munition impact. Now, Todd Carley, again, this breaking news, though, today, the head of Iran's IRGC Navy taken out in a strike overnight. And again, we are told that was due to joint U.S. and Israeli intelligence. Guys?
All right, Trey Yates, thank you so much. We're going to bring in former Deputy National Security Advisor for Vice President Cheney, Steve Yates. Steve, thanks for coming on and talking to us about this. I mean, you heard Trey's report there. I want to talk about Trump saying that Iran wants a deal. I mean, we're coming into the 4th week of this. And you hear Iran say, no, we're going to reject these deals. What does this signify to you?
Well, 4 weeks seems long when we consider news cycles and diplomatic back and forth, but in conducting a major military operation, this is relatively swift. To me, it says that President Trump clearly is communicating with some people in Iran. We don't have the luxury of knowing, and probably if they were known, their lives would be in jeopardy. But he's been very, very clear from the outset that he seeks to make this a shorter-term operation, at least in terms of major military operations. I think we're looking at a de-escalation in the not-too-distant future. And then those probably still need to be American and other joint operations to manage things going forward, but not necessarily with this heavy tempo for the United States. But militarily, we couldn't have asked for a better performance by our military, and the jointness and division of labor with our ally Israel is going to be something that several other allies study and probably are going to be envious of.
Yeah, you talk about still needing military, even if there was a deal reached. How long were we talking?
Well, I think that's going to be conditions based. And I think President Trump has been clear also through this process, and he will give inducements, but also some pressure to make sure that allies with skin in the game step into particular roles. There's a lot that other powers can do to secure safe passage of vessels. There's a lot that other powers can do to secure the peace going forward. We're probably going to need some kind of international peacekeepers, verifiers of counter-proliferation risks with the nuclear or missile facilities. At least the missile facilities, what's left of them. And so there's clearly going to be work to be done. I would consider this more like maintenance rather than major up-tempo operations, but still work to be done, and that burden should be shared by others.
Yeah, I mean, because when Trump asked for $200 billion last week, that kind of signifies to a lot of people, how long is this actually going to last then? I want to play this soundbite. This is from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She was promising to, quote, unleash hell on the Iranian regime if they refused a peace agreement. Listen to this.
President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their senior leadership, their Navy, their Air Force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal.
Your reaction to this?
Well, I think it has the added virtue of being true. And again, President Trump, contrary to what his critics might think, has been somewhat restrained in this military campaign, at least in the following way. Done tremendous damage to military-related targets, but in total war, say in past big wars that people might study, you would take out the civilian energy and other infrastructure because you want to stop all fuel for the war machine. He has held back from hitting a lot of that infrastructure to try to make reconstruction and revival of Iran's economy after the conflict is over and perhaps when a different kind of government emerges.
He's making a very good point about this, that there is a little bit of a restraint that Trump has to try to make sure that the society has something there for reconstruction.
And so I think if they don't see this as their last best hope of a deal to de-escalate and maybe sue for peace and get to live in a reformed Iran, then I think they are going to get hit very, very hard.
Okay, Steve Yates, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Juicy.
I'm Brighteon Channel.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the...
All right. Let's listen to Live Now. They just posted.
Right now, as we are at the top of the hour, I want to get you right back into some of the headlines that we are covering here at this moment. Take a look. This is also breaking news as we are hearing from Fox's Trey Yingst that the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy, Ali Reza Tangsiri, who directly commanded the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, was targeted in a strike overnight. That is according to a senior Israeli official. Now, we are also learning here that Israel is claiming it killed Tangsiri, again, the head of the Revolutionary Guard's Navy. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, saying that Tangsiri had been killed along with other senior naval commanders in an overnight strike. He said Tangsiri was responsible for bombing operations that had blocked ships from crossing the Strait of Hormuz, and he said the strike should serve as a, quote, clear message to top Iranian military officials that the Israeli military would hunt them down. Iran not yet acknowledging Tangsiri's killing. There's a lot to discuss as there are so many developments that are coming into our newsroom here. I do want to bring in Jonathan Saye with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, always joining us here to break down the latest. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Good morning. Excited to discuss some of this breaking news that's happening daily at this point.
Daily, hourly, a lot going on. So, Jonathan, I want to start off with the information that we have coming in here from Trey Yingst and from Israel Katz there in Israel, essentially saying that not only was the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy targeted, but appears to have been killed. How significant is that overall?
It is quite significant because we discussed leadership decapitation of the Islamic Republic as soon as the war began, about a month ago at this point. But that said, there were still plenty of commanders left, and Tank Siri is a good example of one of them. So the decapitation on the military front is not really complete yet. There's still quite a few of them left. Politically speaking, there's still significant figures that are decision makers in Tehran deliberately left alive in case the United States wants to negotiate with them. But when it comes to the operational side of things, this is a regime that has demonstrated its ability to still pose a threat despite not having a unified command. Now, whether it's going to be a disruption against their malign activities, certainly. Now, if it's going to halt it, it's going to be a different story, because closing the Strait of Hormuz, ultimately, all you need is a few IRGC personnel and some cheap drones. You don't even need launch pads. You don't quite need a commander. But that said, it's a significant blow to the regime's morale as well. Now, foot soldiers know they might be next, this might in itself encourage more defections amongst these ranks.
We've seen a lot of videos, information, statements that have come out from Iran's quote-unquote leadership at this point, saying that they are winning the war, the U.S. is not. But everything that we've seen kind of indicates that is not the case. They are not winning, and the U.S. appears to be victorious overall.
Without a doubt, the Islamic Republic's propaganda at this point has gotten, frankly, even lazier than it was a while back. Now they're even relying more on AI and fake videos to somehow appease their population internally. And on the other hand, they're so afraid of the flow of information targeting the average Iranian that they've shut down the internet for about a month now. They jam satellite channels. And that's because they know they're losing, and they don't want to at least lose the information warfare side of things.
All right, the markets did open up, so let's just talk about that really quick before we go back to live now. The S&P 500 is trading at 6,538, which is below the 6,600 support level. So it broke. It's not reestablishing. If we continue to have bad news in the Middle East and more war escalation, we're probably going to be testing 6,450. That means that you don't be fearful, buy into the market, buy into equities, preferably a broad index like the Russell index, let's say Russell 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, right? Or the S&P 500. Any ETF that's non-leveraged, broad index, buy in. Be careful when you go into individual stocks, because that's going to have idiosyncratic risk. All right. The VIX is trading at 26.94. If we continue to have escalation in the Middle East, we are going to test the 30 handle in the VIX. It's very possible that the VIX will spike to 45. If it does, that is a perfect opportunity to buy equities. All right, Euro USD stable at 115, and Japanese yen stable at 159.56. So dollar stable, no big deal. Bitcoin trading at 69,000 handle. Natural gas trading at 2.974, and oil trading at 93.83. Now let's just talk about oil for a second here. In the near term, oil should be trading at around about $94 to about $98, $99 a barrel. So $94 to $99 a barrel. Resistance level for WTI, $100 a barrel. Support level, probably around 93, 92. Now, if things start to de-escalate rapidly, and the United States takes hold of the Strait of Hormuz and can control it without having drones fired on the tankers, then we're going to see oil trading in the $80 range. The $80 handle. Now, once things stabilize further, we are not going to go back down to pre-war levels. Pre-war levels were about $58 to about $64 a barrel. We're not going to do that. Everything is going to be elevated about $10 above. So we're looking at about a $65 to about a $70 range going forward once everything stabilizes. But it's going to take some time to get the oil markets to be stable. But once we hear some good news, hopefully, in the region, that the Strait of Hormuz is controlled by the United States and that tankers are flowing with very little worry about getting attacked by Iran, we're going to probably see a $10 drop in WTI and in Brent crude. Maybe even more in Brent crude, because Brent crude has been elevating faster because of the issues in the Middle East. So that means that if good news came out today that we were controlling the Strait of Hormuz, oil would be trading at $84 a barrel. This is going to drop 10 bucks. So this is the reason why oil traders are having problems actually trading this range, because one tweet or post from Trump can move the market $10 more for oil futures or $10 less. And so it's very hard to trade this market, because it seems that the probability of it going down is higher than the probability of going up. All right. Now, you have individuals that are trading the cash market versus the delivery market, or taking possession market, right? And there's a disconnect between ones that are actually taking oil in delivery in Asia relative to the actual futures price that's taking place in the market, because that's usually, most traders do not take possession of oil. Now, some do. Some companies take possession of the oil and they purchase futures. And sometimes those companies need to hedge their purchase, and so they may short futures to change their exposure to volatility in the market as they're buying. All right. Let me expand on that a little bit. If you're selling oil in the real market, right, and you sell it at $70, right, but yet the actual future price is $80, you lost $10, right? So you may be selling someone something, and if you're worried that let's say you have to deliver at $70 to someone, and let's say the future price is at 80 for that at that moment of delivery, then you've lost 10. Well, you may want to hedge if you're selling oil, but you can come up with these strategies also if you're buying. If you're buying oil, and let's say it's 70, right, and the future and the futures price was 80, you made money. But let's say the future price was 65. You bought oil at a higher price than what the spot is, okay, for the future, the current future price. So the people are taking possession of oil, they'll create these strategies to try to reduce their risk of losing when they actually take on the delivery. But also people that are not taking delivery, they're looking at momentum. They may be going, well, if oil's going to go up, I'm going to long futures. I'm going to long oil. But let's say a news event happens and oil starts to sell off. Well, you just lost money. All right. So sometimes people go, well, there may be a news event that actually brings down oil, even though they're long. And so they may hedge their strategy. They may, let's say that their portfolio, they may put 75% of their money in the long position and 25% in the short position. And so they're trying to reduce their exposure. So they try to hedge their position. All right. So that's some of the complexity that's going on here. So you have people that are selling real oil in the market to people that are going to take possession of it, right? And they are worried that in the future, the price is going to radically go down. So they're hedging, they're buying short positions. So energy wants to go down. The behavior of the price curve wants to go down. But because of the events in the Middle East, it's pushing it up. And this is the reason why once good news comes out of the Middle East, oil is going to radically go down. So there's higher probability of a big price move on the downside of oil, not on the upside. Now, but it may take weeks, it may take months for this to come to fruition. It all depends on how well the United States ends up performing on the battlefield. So that's the kind of the nuance of this, that behaviorally, the price curve wants to go down because people that are selling real oil in the market are worried that there's going to be a precipitous drop in the oil price because of the opening up of the strait. So they're hedging. They're hedging. They're thinking if it does drop, that they're not caught where they're buying at a high price and selling at a low price their oil. So they're hedging. They're wanting to bring down that price. So that's why I'm looking at this and it's like it's dangerous to go long on oil. It's better to short oil, but when you're shorting oil, you can be caught in this wild swings of Trump's rhetoric. And that swing could be $10 swings. So, all right, that's a little bit of inside baseball, but let's continue.
U.S. has so far achieved a military victory. That is not a matter of opinion. But that said, a transformative and true achievement that could be comparable to the collapse of the Berlin Wall has not yet arrived. So we have to really make a distinction between a military victory versus a political one. The latter is certainly on the horizon, but that said, there's still a little bit more to be done. But if the president wants to really showcase this and Ph.D. wants to demonstrate this as a good example of American firepower that was able to really destroy the largest missile arsenal in the Middle East, that certainly can be the case.
One thing I also want to discuss is that there's been a lot of rumors, information circulating as there are these talks that are apparently taking place between the U.S. and Iran over a potential ceasefire deal, President Trump's 15-point plan. There's been a lot of discussion about Vice President J.D. Vance and whether or not he's going to travel over the Middle East and take part in all of that. How significant would it be for Vance to not only head to the Middle East, but also take part in those peace talks?
We know Tehran and Washington have always been in communication, and usually wartime is when you need diplomacy the most. And that has been the case so far. So the fact that they're talking in itself is not really surprising. What is interesting is that Washington still wants to further legitimize this military action by engaging in diplomacy, and that's key. For us to really showcase to the world that we're exhausting every option and the ball continues to be in Tehran's court and they don't really want to provide concessions or concede in any way or compromise. So that in itself, I think, is going to further legitimize this military campaign. As to what are the fruits of this? How can we really get anything that's attainable? We've seen so far with Tehran, following Operation Midnight Hammer, 12-day war, maximum pressure, diplomacy, and now this war, that Tehran doesn't change its stance on anything. They don't compromise regardless. If anything, the more paranoid they become and the more fragile they get, they're less likely to offer any meaningful compromises because they see that as a sign of weakness. For them to really give up their nuclear program in the midst of this war continues to look very unlikely. Now, who's leading that American front? The big scale of things is debatable how impactful that's going to be, whether it's Kushner, Witkoff, or Vance, or even the president himself, the Washington's position is quite unified. That still we don't want to see Iran enrich uranium. We don't want Iran to have long missile ranges, and of course the proxy support. On the other hand, you see Tehran really not backing on all of this, and this has turned into this game of cat and mouse for the last, I want to say, 30 years. It was the same topics of negotiations, and we really failed to get anywhere with them.
Also want to talk a little bit about the situation with Hezbollah, because we do have this right here, the IDF posting a short time ago, southern Lebanon. IDF troops continue targeted ground operations to enhance the forward defense area. Operational accomplishments, 350 or more Hezbollah terror infrastructure sites targeted, 330 or more terrorists eliminated, weapons and military equipment located, including night vision devices, missile launchers, RPG rockets, magazines, rifles, machine gun, a lot of different devices there. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see some of the images that were released along with this by the IDF. So I wanted to ask you, as we look at this as a whole, you have Hezbollah that is backed by Iran. Explain their whole role, because they got involved, of course, and you're not just seeing Iran firing different missiles, barrages of missiles, but also Hezbollah.
They are, and they've done this before as well. That has been Tehran's strategy, to create what they define as a ring of fire around Israel by supporting different terror groups. And as you pointed out, Lebanon is the crown jewel of all of them. The Hezbollah stationed in the south of the country. But that said, there are different ones. Of course, you had Hamas, you had the Iraqi PMF fighters, the Houthis in Yemen. And Israelis are not the only targets of these terror groups. They've historically actually been more used to kill U.S. personnel in Iraq or Afghanistan than Israelis themselves. But now, as the war has been escalating, Tehran again wants to inflict more political cost by targeting civilian infrastructure indiscriminately, whether that's going to be through their own cluster munitions or whether they use these proxies. And as you pointed out, the night vision goggles itself is quite concerning, because we've had quite a few reports indicating that it is not just about barrages and rockets being launched simply from Lebanon. A lot of these plots aimed to get inside Israeli territory and execute another version of October 7th through the Lebanese Hezbollah. So the ambitions are still there. That said, Israel is fighting a two-front war, and in both cases, it's demonstrated that it's winning, but again, the action needs to be decisive. This idea that every 6 months or a year, Israel has to do a ground operation or a major operation in Iraq or in Lebanon or in Syria or in Iran is not going to be sustainable in the long term. Same for the United States. That's why this is a historic opportunity. It's really an unprecedented time of history for us to be able to actually remove the regime in Tehran and put an end to this reoccurring nightmare in the Middle East.
I want to pop this up on your screen, just coming in from President Trump. It is a new statement on the Iran negotiations, courtesy our buddy Trey Yinks over at Fox News, saying, quote, "The Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback, and yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal wrong. They better get serious soon before it's too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back, and it won't be pretty." What do you make of that statement there, Jonathan, just coming in from President Trump?
One thing Iran knows about the president is that he's followed through with every threat precisely and decisively. That is no exaggeration. Prior to the June war, the 12-day war, the president gave Iran, I think, a 60-day deadline, and on the 60th day, they saw the war happen. Same with this time again. And what's really interesting is that the president actually does every time before escalation use diplomacy. And that's really, again, unprecedented. In every step of the way, there's always a mechanism in place to see if we can somehow resolve this and move on. That goes back to his deal-making instincts, and it's in clear display in the context of Iran. Now, what the threat could look like, so the situation is intensifying. I do think this administration is particularly concerned with the Strait of Hormuz and the supply chain flows paired with oil prices. it is very much not acceptable to them by any means, given the economic promises made by the administration to American voters. So because of that, should these talks fail, we are very likely to see some major escalation. As to what that would look like, I think goes down to the political leadership of the Islamic Republic. Because in every step, you can see Washington's strategy of keeping a few people in charge to see if he can make a deal, if not eliminates them and moves on to the next batch. That has been the strategy since June, and it's more or less working out, but I think we're getting to the point of no return and there is no way out but through. At least that's how the Iranian people see it, living under this regime with the rise in executions. Same with our allies in the region. I think there used to be a point where these Persian Gulf countries were open to a deal, but at this point they also want something decisive and final. So no matter who you ask at this point, if it's European, Middle Eastern countries, the Iranian people, Israelis, and the American voters, I think everyone has never been this aligned on a decisive action against Tehran.
I'm going to pop this video up on your screen. It's coming in from Elan Levy. He is, of course, the former Israeli government spokesperson. This is a video that's circulating all over social media, and I want to watch it for just a second because at some point, as you watch on the right-hand side of your screen, this appears to be an Iranian ballistic missile that was fired at an Arab-Israeli town there. Again, targeting civilians in that area. Keep watching the right-hand side of your screen, and you can see just the impact there from that strike. We are working, of course, to figure out if there are any injuries, but this is a fluid situation as that strike happened just a short time ago. Now, Jonathan, what does that tell us about, and you touched on this a little bit, but about the targets here for Iran, for Hezbollah, because it sounds as though they really aren't targeting anyone. They're just firing everywhere.
I wouldn't even say it sounds as though. It evidently clearly looks like it. You just see the civilian death count, and all these videos again show us. You see the American-Israeli campaign going after precision targeting, specifically targeted assassinations, taking out a particular building, talking to Iranian civilians, telling them when to take shelter. On the other hand, Iran deliberately goes after these civilian infrastructure. Cluster munitions themselves are, by definition, indiscriminate. They just explode, and I think it's a 5-mile radius that could be impacted. The threat is very real, but worse than that is the intent to specifically inflict political cost by killing civilians, which is the literal definition of terrorism. Very, very concerning. What's also notable, you mentioned it's an Arab-Israeli town, and that was the case also during the 12-day war, and we see it now again, that a lot of the victims of Iranian missiles were actually Arab Israelis, Muslims, and Palestinians, groups, and really communities that Iran has long claimed, at least, that they're defending. So it's very notable for us to see how in clear light of day that they're deliberately actually killing people that they are claiming to defend. Having spoken to actually many Palestinian community members in Jerusalem and across Israel, the sentiment is the same, that we thought we were friends of the Tehran regime, but now we see ourselves get stuck in the crossfire. Same with the Qatari, same with a lot of other actors in the region. I think more and more, a lot of different figures, entities, and countries are realizing that when we call the Islamic Republic an irrational regime, this is the implication of it. It's about mass killings of civilians and civilian infrastructure.
All right, Jonathan Saye at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We'll follow all the latest developments, and of course, I'm sure we'll have you on again very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the drops. They're made from structural nanosilver. This is going to help to neutralize and to mitigate any soreness from a sore throat. You can get it in cherry flavor, blueberry flavor, and also honey and lemon. Again, they're made from structural nanosilver. It's going to help to neutralize and mitigate that soreness. It's really important. The moment that you start getting a sore throat during the cold season or the allergy season, you want to mitigate the problem. By doing that, take the structural nanosilver lozenges and drops. For the lozenges, you can get it in orange, splash, vitamin C, and also in Manuka honey. Get a few bags for your household. You never know, and you need them. Have some at home, have some at work. You never know. But the moment you have that throat irritation, take it right away. Again, these are much better than the other types of lozenges that are sold at the store because this will neutralize. Very important. Structural nanosilver soaps. Again, helps to neutralize. It improves the health of your skin, helps with your pores. You can get it in peppermint and also in lemongrass. That's what I have in stock right now. Get a few bars for your household. It's very high quality soaps. Use them every day. And boost up that immune system by taking lignans. Lignans also helps to boost up your endocrine system. Soaks up free radicals and brings down inflammation. You'll recover quicker after a workout by taking lignans. Now, the benefits by taking it will also help to improve your cardiovascular health and brain function. By bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals, you're helping the health of your neurons, and you are reducing plaque formation. So you get a lot of benefits from taking lignans. Now, you can take separately or you can stack it with lignans, and that's the ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha root will bring down cortisol levels. That's going to help boost up that immune system. And ashwagandha root also helps to control your ashwagandha root will help to control your blood glucose levels and your cortisol levels. Now, when you're doing that, you're bringing down the cortisol levels. And when you're bringing down those cortisol levels, you're actually boosting up that immune system because elevated cortisol chronically actually is immunosuppressive. So you're getting rid of that cortisol. Also, elevated cortisol levels does damage to your tissues, including your cardiovascular system. So elevated cortisol, too much stress, does damage to organ systems and tissues, brings down the immune system. So you want to bring down the cortisol levels. So ashwagandha root will help that. Now, with blood glucose levels, if you have elevated blood glucose levels, what will happen is that you'll start having problems with the intima of your vascular system and then start having problems with your vascular health, more plaque formation. That's the reason why it's really important to reduce your sugar intake and maintain a good level of blood glucose. Now, you don't want to go too low because you don't want to be hypoglycemic, but in the United States, there are too many people that have too high of a blood glucose level. And so their A1C levels are elevated. So you want to control that. Now, it takes a long time to control A1C levels. It's not just reduce your blood glucose. A physician knows if you're not taking your insulin or eating properly by just taking a look at the A1C level, because it never lies. And it takes months to be able to control the A1C level. So if your A1C level is a little bit out of whack and elevated, then they know that you're not taking your medication, or they know that you're not following your diet. You can't lie. The moment you get your blood work and you take a look at the A1C level, it's 100% that are not following the protocol. And a lot of people that are diabetic, they don't know that. So the bottom line is this: you need to reduce your sugar intake. Take the ashwagandha root. This is going to bring down those cortisol levels and bring down those blood glucose levels to a normal level. That way, you're boosting up your immune system and helping with your cardiovascular system. Now, when you are doing that, you're also helping with your brain function, not just your cardiovascular health and your immune system. Why? Because you're getting better blood flow to the brain. When you have better blood flow to the brain, your hippocampus is healthier. You're getting the micronutrients you need to maintain the dendritic connections. You're also bringing down the stress around the neuron. So there's added benefits for doing this. And this is the reason why that when you stack these together, the ashwagandha root and the lignans, when you stack these together, you're going to get added benefit. There's going to be a synergistic benefit to helping the immune system, helping the endocrine system, helping the cardiovascular system and brain function. And when you do this regularly, you're going to actually see that you're slowing down the aging process. Because think about what aging is. Less energy, your arteries start to get clogged, you lose muscle mass, brain function starts to go down, blood flow starts to be inhibited. But if you attack all these things that age you by soaking up free radicals and bringing down inflammation, getting better blood flow, improving your posture, improving your musculature, these are all things that are going to give you longevity and vitality into your later years. It's a very simple concept, but all it takes is investing in yourself by proper supplementation, proper diet and exercise, proper sleep, make sure you drink your filtered water, right? Detoxify your body regularly. When you do these things, learn new things, have a better positive outlook on life, have some spirituality or some sort of mindfulness. All these things will work in tandem to improve your health. But there are many people that won't do this. There are many people that they don't want to invest in their health, so they just think that they'll just go to a physician and get some medication to solve their problem. But those medications, the pharmacopoeia, all of them, or almost all of them, will have some sort of side effect. Or is it better to actually do it more holistically? And so you're not as reliant on pharmacopoeia when you're older. Invest in your body now, and it's going to pay dividends later. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't pay attention. And they have problems later in life. All right, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. I want you to save some money. I know things are more expensive out there for every household. But if you pay attention to me, you're going to actually save money in the long run, because it's going to cost you more to treat a disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. Make sure you use discount 5, all caps, discount 5. All right, let's take a look at some more new breaking news here. This is General Keane.
General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General, what are the challenges for the United States to secure the strait?
Yeah, well, it's not without its challenges, but listen, we've been dealing with this thing for decades. I mean, even when I was a division commander in the 90s and a corps commander, that was one of our war plans that we exercised tabletop and got to the bottom of. When I was a 4-star in the Pentagon in 2000s, we were exercising that plan. So these people that say, oh my, the Iranians kind of surprised us with the Straits of Hormuz, give me a break. This has been a part of our repertoire for years. Listen, Admiral Cooper, who you had there, discussing what's going down. By the way, Jesse,
that's an important thing that General Keane said. There are too many people in mainstream media.
It was worth attacking. Well done here. It's the best rundown I've seen since.
If I can just stop this thing.
Listen, Admiral Cooper, who you had there, discussing what's going.
I finally got it to shut up. What General Keane is saying here is super important, because in mainstream media and in podcasters that hate Trump, like Scott Ritter, right? They're all saying Trump, wasn't prepared. He's going in, guns a-blazing, and there's no preparation. This has been war game for more than 10 years. And the strike plan, the strike package, has been developed for the last 5 years. And that includes Biden's administration. And if you don't believe me, U.S. Naval Institute interviewed last week one of the war planners that did it, that actually made the war plan. So there's a lot of laziness that's going on there in mainstream media. But there's also a lot of laziness going on with the podcasters out there. They're just trying to demonize Trump, saying that we're not going to win. This is going to be a quagmire. This is going to be a Vietnam. We need to do this. We can't allow for us just to kick the can down the road. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump is all lily white or great with the way he communicates with the public. I don't think that the Pentagon is completely honest, nor do I think that Trump is being completely honest. I think they were trying to sugarcoat the casualties that first happened on that first 48 hours of the operations. But overall, they're performing pretty well in terms of the military. So we're gonna, once this is all done and we look back and we compare the Iraq war, compare Desert Storm and Operation Epic Fury, there's gonna be some lessons learned. But you're gonna see that this is probably, we're not there yet, we're not at the end, but probably this is probably gonna be a very successful operation. But this has been in the works for a long time. A long time. Now people would say, well, they must have not spent enough time on the Strait of Hormuz. No, they did spend a lot of time on the Strait of Hormuz in terms of the war plan. Do you think that that the United States should have moved their Navy in to try to keep the strait open while they're being hit? And what if one of our ships got sunk? It takes a long time to get another one back online. It takes 3 to 4 to 5 years to make one. And oh, by the way, we don't have enough shipyards. So you have to be prudent. On top of a potential war any day in Asia between China and Taiwan. It could happen tomorrow. No one knows. So you have to be prudent.
Going down. By the way, Jesse, I just want to compliment you. That's the best rundown I've seen since the war started on what we've been doing, systematically running down all of our capabilities and the objectives we're attacking. Well done here for you and your team.
Thank you.
But the reality is, on the Straits of Hormuz, we are going to take that by force and keep it open for as long as we have to be there to keep it open. And that is why we appealed for assistance, because we have warships who are doing offensive operations. We have warships who are doing defensive operations. And obviously we can spare some to do some escorting through the straits. But we needed help for others to come. And obviously now they are coming. And they're coming by the scores. Now we're up to 30 countries that want to help. So that's going to be very important. And operationally, we know how to do this. And what we've systematically been doing for about 12 to 14 days is taking down Iran's capability to interdict our ships. And what am I talking about there? Eliminating the small boats and mines that are part of their arsenal, eliminating the drones that can reach them, eliminating the anti-strike missiles that Iran has on its territory, and going even further in depth into other ballistic missiles and short-range missiles that could also influence shipping. So systematically, Admiral Cooper and his team have been doing that. And obviously that's just thrown into the huge collage of all the airstrikes that are being done. With very specific targeting here so that the ability for Iran to retaliate to any consequential degree is denied them. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have capability to shoot a drone at us or take a shot at us. Certainly, that's possible. And that's what the warships are there for. They'll have defensive systems. And listen, Jesse, we're likely to strap on to those commercial ships also some counter drone capability with drones themselves, and also likely some EW capability. We have some pretty sophisticated capability we've been using here in the war and also in Ukraine, where you separate the person that's transmitting the electronic message to a drone from the drone itself. And what happens? The drone falls to the ground. So there'll be defensive measures right at the point of contact, but in-depth measures taken to reduce their retaliation in terms of small boats, landmines, and all the systems that they can have that can range that shipping. That is a comprehensive operation. We know how to do that. Admiral Cooper and his people are about doing that. And it's a fact. We will open by force the Straits of Hormuz, and we will keep it open. That is the path that we're on here, as well as taking down Iran's offensive capability. You're demonstrating that every night what we're doing to remove their nuclear capability as well in its entirety. And we're also talking to them. And essentially, for the American people to understand, what the Trump administration, whose eyes are wide open here in terms of Iran, they're liars, they're cheaters, we understand all of that. And what we're simply asking them to do is surrender the capabilities that they have that we are forcibly taking away from them. We're offering them that opportunity to do that. It's unlikely they will do that. And that is why the military option is being forcibly executed every single day. As of a couple of days ago, we need about 3 weeks to finish this on the American side as well as the IDF side, systematically, deliberately. It's one of the remarkable success stories in American military history in terms of what we're dealing here. And I'm gratified to see you point out the lack of casualties that we have in terms of the numbers of casualties. It breaks our heart to have any casualties and certainly any killed in action or even accidental deaths. But the reality is these casualties are very, very small by comparison to anything that we've done in the past. And why is that? Because we took away early on their capability to retaliate consequentially. They wanted to do 25 to 50 salvos at a time. And they're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's about it. And occasionally they'll put together 10. But look at the casualties even in Israel. 14 dead. Yeah. Comparison to what they have fired and comparison to what they did during the 12-day war, which was twice that. So it's a remarkable operation in terms of what we're achieving through kinetic action and also how we're being able to protect our forces, to protect the civilians in Israel, and to protect our allies and partners in the region. And they're doing a lot of that protection for themselves as well. Truly, truly an extraordinary operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly well led.
And when the New York Times admits it, you know it's true. Because they had to pull that out of them with a lot of effort. General Jack Keane, thanks as always for your analysis. Spot on. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
So President Trump is holding another cabinet meeting today.
It's always exciting. Officials are expected to discuss topics ranging from DHS shutdown that's causing long security lines across the country, as well as the latest on Operation Epic Fury.
Peter Doocy joins us from the White House with the details. Peter.
Good morning, and President Trump wants his advisors, the people in that cabinet room, to try to figure out how to wind the war down in the next couple of weeks, according to the Wall Street Journal. But between now and then, he might have to unleash hell.
President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their senior leadership, their Navy, their Air Force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal.
And so far, the U.S. military's role in Epic Fury is getting good marks. The Fox News poll finds that 58% think the military's performance has been excellent or good. And here are the bullet points holding things up, holding up the end. The U.S. demands of Iran: dismantle the nuclear facilities, have zero nuclear enrichment, constrain the missile development, and then keep the Strait of Hormuz free and safe. They also want them to stop supporting proxy terror groups. Iran is asking this of the United States, They want to guarantee no more U.S. attacks. They want full sanctions relief. They want the U.S. to pay some war compensation. And they want a new payment system for passing through the Strait of Hormuz. They also want the U.S. to pull out of Middle Eastern military bases. We don't know how many of those things are realistic, but the president still seems to think that both sides are close.
Nobody's ever seen anything like we're doing in the Middle East with Iran. And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us. There's never been a head of a country that wanted that job less than being the head of Iran.
And this morning at 10 o'clock, 3 hours from now, this is going to be the first time that the whole cabinet has gotten together since Epic Fury started so that they can talk about the military part with the war secretary, the economic part and gas prices with the treasury secretary and the interior secretary and the energy secretary, and also the possible impact on food prices with the agriculture secretary. Back to you.
A lot of topics and a lot of people, and a lot of times it goes on for a long time. Thanks so much, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
It looks like the president just tweeted or put this out on Truth Social. He said, the Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback, and yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong. They better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there's no turning back and it won't be pretty.
First of all, if you're going to deal with Iran, you want them to be different and strange, because that means that they're not real believers, the ones that you're dealing with right now. That means they're afraid of dying. The leaders before weren't afraid of dying. They believed that they were going to get their 100 or whatever, so virgins in heaven, and they believed in the ideology. I still think that when you talk to the sources inside of the administration, they still got some targets to kill. They killed someone overnight. But we still got some of those long-time leaders that are in place. Once they're gone, then we have a chance at peace, Brian.
I think they are. Like, for example, Bin Laden talks about all that, but he was running for his life and hiding with an extraordinary resourcefulness. As you know, it took years to get him. All these guys are scared to death. They got 31 provinces. They're all fanned out, afraid to communicate with each other. Word is that the Pakistanis asked us not to kill the foreign minister, Arachi, because he was in the Israelis had his coordinates. They said, you can't kill him. There's nobody else to talk to. So there's other people to talk to, like the parliamentary speaker, but they seem to be somewhat unhinged. The success that we're having is really tremendous. But there's the big success that's holding off the Strait of Hormuz. What our military is going to be doing, those 2 Marine ships and 5,000 Marines, they're going to be doing something with these islands in the Strait of Hormuz to get it open. In return, the Iranians said, if you do that, essentially, we're going to look to shut off the Red Sea, another strait there. That's where the Saudis have rerouted a lot of their oil. They were selling 15 million a day. Now they're up to 8 million through the Red Sea because they rerouted. They also have things going through pipelines. They have a plan B. So the question is, that would get the Houthis involved. Would they be willing to do that? The Germans have come out and said, we'll do anything to push for the peace. The UAE has said, so we're by the president, we're by America's side. We should not, they should not be in it alone, meaning us, because the UAE has been hit by more rockets, more attacks than the Israelis. And why? Because they represent free enterprise within the Arab community. They also have doubled down and said, we still plan on investing $1.4 trillion into American industry. So if those people who thought you were going to dislodge the Gulf states from our influence, just the opposite has happened. They're asking for more defense, more missile defense, bigger bases.
Well, when you look at what we're doing to Iran, they're definitely negotiating with us. They don't want that to continue to happen. We've destroyed 10,000 military targets. 92% of Iran's Navy has been destroyed. We've damaged or destroyed 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards. They're definitely talking to us because they want it to end. They're never gonna admit that on state TV. And there are reports that they decided no ceasefire. They're not going to work with us on our demands, the U.S. demands. And that Harachi, what's his name? Harachi, the minister, the foreign minister in Iran. He said that's not true. We're not talking to the U.S., but I don't believe it.
All I say, don't be on the wrong side of this. Our military is doing phenomenally well. The plan is extremely well planned out by Admiral Cooper and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Don't listen to people who just want President Trump to fail. This is too serious. and do your research, because when the regime collapses and you're sitting there with your jaw on the ground, you're going to be on the wrong side because you're listening to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.
Alrighty. Ooh, let's see here. Let me do a product plug before we go to the next clip here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. I have two types of probiotics. You can get the powdered form and the veggie cap form. Both are very high quality. Take them every day. Either one. I prefer the powdered form because I take all these different powders for my supplements, but either one will work for you. But take it every day. And what this will do is improve your gut biome, improve your immune system at the gut level, increase your IgA antibodies, which is super important, increase your mucosal lining, reduce leaky gut syndrome. When you reduce leaky gut syndrome, you're reducing allergies. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the allergy problems that you have is because of your gut health. Now, you'll also improve your sleep patterns. You're going to improve your memory. You're going to improve getting rid of that brain fog. Your metabolism will improve, your skin. Lots of things happen positively when you have a good gut biome. So please go to my store, get the probiotics, either in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. And also, digestive enzyme complex. This will help to reduce the load on your pancreas, help you to digest carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients easier. And this is really important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. Our pancreas doesn't perform as well as when it was younger. So it's really important to give that extra help for your pancreas by taking the digestive enzyme complex. Digestive enzyme complex also has bromelain in it, which is a enzyme that will help to break up clots. And it has the proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins, which is super important during the cold season. So it's a dual purpose. Take it every day to help to digest. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order.
And Japan is releasing oil from its strategic reserves to ease price pressure. The country depends heavily on Middle Eastern supplies, with about 95% of its oil imports coming from the region. Well, across Bangladesh, long queues at fuel stations are becoming a daily sight. The government is seeking nearly $2 billion in loans to keep power, facilities and transport running, and it's another example of how the impact of the war in the Middle East is being felt far from the front.
Breaking. McMaster's talking on CNBC.
We're shifting on a campaign to ensure freedom of navigation in the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. That shift is happening. You just saw the strike against the IRGC naval commander. There's going to be more of that to follow. And so I think the war's going to continue, Sarah, because I don't think that the remnants of this Iranian regime will accept our terms. And so I think we're going to have to impose our will on the Iranians. And I hope, Sarah, set conditions for a change in the nature of that regime, a regime that more reflects the attitudes of its own people.
We also have to, they are still holding, in a way, the global economy hostage with the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz. So what does the U.S. and anyone that will help us, besides Israel, do to end that, both the blockade and the ability for Iran to do that?
Well, I think what we have to conclude is this is an unacceptable condition. And again, this is another reason, I think, why you have to have a change in the nature of the regime. If the Islamic Republic that adheres to the ideology of the revolution remains in power, you're going to have the global economies going to remain hostage to that regime. And so I think that's an argument for continuation of the campaign. What you're going to see, as I mentioned, is a shift in these targets toward opening the Gulf. You're going to see not only the fixed-wing aircraft that you see operating, but you'll see, Apache helicopters, the A-10s, which have this tremendous loiter capability. Then you'll see kind of the proofing, of the strait, and a mine clearing operation that's going to take, maybe a couple days. And then you'll begin to see this kind of protected bubble move with some tankers, some cargo ships that initiate traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Our traffic that we would like to see get through. And of course, there is traffic getting through. It's Chinese traffic, it's Indian traffic, those who are getting permission from the Iranians. And so what we can't accept is the Iranians be like running the toll booth and deciding who can move through the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, waiting or exerting our will on the situation to the point where the nature of the regime changes, as you say, that sounds like a more sustained, intense commitment than perhaps has been suggested by reports overnight that maybe the president wants a way to kind of come to some kind of terms even before his visit to China in May. I mean, how do we reconcile these things?
Well, I think it's the difference between what the president would like. He would like to see a rapid end, and the president a lot of times he's good at marketing, and so he's marketing that idea and hoping maybe reality reflects his preference for a rapid end of the conflict. But hey, I think you got to place it in context. I mean, this is a 47-year-long war. This is a war that began with taking U.S. hostages in 1979 to 1980. This is a war that continued with the murder of 241 Marines in Beirut and attacking our embassy and the murdering of French commandos in 1983. I mean, I could go on and on. But Iran has demonstrated its permanent hostility, most recently, by lighting the ring of fire around Israel on October 7th. And what the regime really wants, what they really want to do is to establish hegemonic influence across the region, destroy Israel, kill all the Jews, and step A to that is getting us out of the region so they can have their way. And until they change that hostility, until there's a regime that doesn't have that intent, we can't have an enduring peace. And I think that's just the reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to hear you explain it that way. I'm not, I don't know that Americans fully grasp what is at stake here. It hasn't been the most popular war, and I think the politics play into what ultimately might happen here, right? We're facing midterm elections, higher gas prices, and an American public that, doesn't want to get into another war in the Middle East.
Well, I don't view it, Sarah, as getting into another war. I view it as the initiation of a campaign to end a 47-year-long war that took the lives of thousands of Americans and countless lives across the Middle East. I mean, Iran's strategy had been in large measure until they made the really big mistake of lighting the fire on October 7th and then the direct attacks against Israel in April and October of 2024. Their strategy had been to expend every hour of life if necessary to accomplish their objectives. I mean, how many Syrians died in the Syrian civil war as they enabled the Assad regime's serial episodes of mass homicide? I mean, how many Iraqis have died in a sectarian civil war, really jump-started by Al-Qaeda, but with Iranian militias playing a part in that? How about the Yemenis civil war and the support for the Houthis, who, in addition to interrupting shipping of the Bab el-Mandeb, has committed mass murder, including of children in Yemen? I mean, the list goes on. How about Lebanon, which has been just devastated by Hezbollah and the threat to Israel? And now you see Israel conducting very effective operations against Hezbollah. Lebanon kicks out the Iranian ambassador. They're talking about disarming Hezbollah. Hey, we need to stick with this, Sarah, because, I mean, this regime, I view, has to go. That for the benefit of the United States, the benefit of the Arab states, the benefit of Israel, but I think for all humanity, right?
So can that be accomplished without sending U.S. troops on the ground, which seems to be a big political sticking point?
Sarah, I think so. And when I look at the conditions now, the effect on the leadership, the fragmentation of the leadership, I'm encouraged in particular by the effective strikes against the Basij and against the IRGC. These are the people who committed the mass murder of their own people. Over 30,000 killed in a 2-day period in January. And so I think the conditions are set. This regime, I think, as I mentioned in a recent essay, is a dead dictatorship crawling at this stage. And it would be a real mistake to let the pressure. And this is what we hear from a lot of our Gulf friends and partners. Like, hey, don't leave this regime in power. And of course, I see this as well as a humanitarian operation that's in the interest of the Iranian people as well. So I think the regime is weakened and the conditions are set.
The problem with the seculars within Iran, why aren't they uprising? Why aren't they fighting against the IRGC? They need to fight for their country, or everything we're doing is for naught.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, John, could your next mortgage?
That's the big thing that's happening in Iran right now. It's just like, why aren't the protesters protesting against the IRGC and the theocratic parts of the regime? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver gel. You can get it in the tube form or the quick dispenser. This is a dual-purpose product. This will help to heal wounds, improve your skin, daily skincare, and if you're not feeling well because of the cold season or someone around you is not feeling well at work or at home, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your ears, around your nose, lightly coat your mouth and your nostrils. And guess what? It stays active for 5.5 hours to neutralize. Another thing is that if you have a slight irritation on the outside of your ear canal, this will, you can put a little bit in there and it'll help to heal. Another thing is that if you have drainage because of a cold and you want to sleep better, put some gel into your nostrils. It'll help to dry it up, so it'll allow you to breathe better. So there's many purposes for the gel here. And again, you can use it as daily skincare, topical daily skincare. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the structural nanosilver gels. You never know when you need it. Have some at work, have some at home. Use it. It neutralizes way better than Perel. And again, it stays active for 5.5 hours. Structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, bring down inflammation at the gum line, improve your gum health, and with good oral hygiene, you're helping your cardiovascular health and your valvular health. And this neutralizes because it has the structural nanosilver. Really important to use every day, but especially during the cold season. Why? Because it neutralizes. It's the best toothpaste that you can get. There's nothing better. Cleanse. This is 30 parts per million. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Max 14 is 14 parts per million. They're at different price points, but you use them the same way. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and swallow. What this will do is improve your oral cavity by neutralizing. It'll help the health of the epithelial cells in your oral pharynx, super important. And it's going to help to boost up your immune system. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, or someone around you is not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two, swish in your mouth, gargle 20 seconds, and swallow. Super easy. And you're going to notice that your oral hygiene is better and your immune system is better. I've been doing this for 6 years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take it every day. It's really simple. All right, we're going to go to CNN. They're talking to John Bolton. I wonder what he has to say.
National Security Advisor, Ambassador John Bolton, and thank you for being here. I mean, as someone who obviously used to spend a lot of time inside the Situation Room with the president, when you hear what he says there, do you believe it matters what the president calls this?
Well, I think he's been looking for some time for a way to get out of this. And although it started as a regime change operation, which I think was the right objective, I think he's been nervous about the outcome for some time. It's not unusual for presidents to try and disguise what's actually going on. Let's not forget, Harry Truman called the war in Korea a police exercise, a police operation. But I think it shows that Trump is confused about what his objectives are, and that doesn't bode well.
I mean, the White House says it's been very clear what their objectives are. You don't think it is?
Well, how many have they named over the course of the last 3+ weeks? I think the correct objective is to overthrow the regime. I don't think it's going to negotiate with any seriousness at all. I don't think that's what they want, and I don't think that there's anybody in this regime with whom we can negotiate. If we weren't prepared to stick this out, then I don't think the president ever should have started it.
I mean, we've seen the president saying that Iran really wants to make a deal. The White House today, even when asked by my colleague, Kristen Holmes, who exactly they're speaking with, still haven't said who that person is. Do you think these talks are genuine, or do you think the president is buying time?
Well, it could be he's buying time to assemble this additional military capability. Perhaps he just wants to show he's trying to be reasonable, but the chances of reaching an acceptable agreement with this regime, no matter how many of their leaders we have killed, is zero. And what we need to do is continue destroying the instruments of Iranian state power, like the Revolutionary Guard and its subsidiaries, the Quds Force, which threatens us and Israel and the Gulf Arabs externally, and the besieged militia, which threatens its people internally. By doing that, we are destabilizing the regime. We're not looking for somebody within the regime we can negotiate with, but somebody outside, somebody from the regular army, not caught up in the extreme fanatic views of the regime itself.
On Karg Island, you said that you think the United States should block Iranian oil shipments and take Karg Island. I mean, we're seeing this troop build up, and we were just talking last night about the 82nd Airborne, what exactly they're designed to do. Do you think that is something that they're actively preparing for, not just keeping options open? Do you think taking Karg Island is a real thing we could see in the next few days or weeks?
Well, you know, if we had taken Karg Island about 3 weeks ago, when it still would have been a surprise to the Iranians, that might have made some sense. I think the main thing is to stop the flow of Iranian oil onto the world market. I don't understand why we didn't blockade the Strait of Hormuz ourselves at the beginning. To allow any Iranian oil to get out was a mistake. To wage sanctions on Iranian oil is a mistake. We don't want to finance the Iranian regime in its military campaign against our service members. So at this point, I think Karg Island, I mean, one way to look at it might be is a deception operation. Let the Iranian authorities put all kinds of mines on Karg Island and around it and divert their attention from something else. That may be what's at work.
You know, on the Iranian oil, I asked the president about this on Monday because, you know, I've covered him for a long time. He has heavily criticized Obama for allowing those pallets of cash at $1.7 billion to go to Iran when he was in office. You know, by unsanctioning that Iranian oil that's at sea, what does that say to you? Is that something you would have advocated for if you were advising him?
No, and it's not clear that the administration has taken steps to prevent the purchasers of that oil from making payments to Iran. I think if we'd left the oil sanctioned, we had grounds to stop their ships at sea. There are a lot of other things we could have done. It's just inconceivable that we would allow financing to get to the government in Tehran to continue the war operation. But the main thing is to make sure no more of their oil gets out. And honestly, as I say, I don't understand why we didn't do that on the first day of the war.
What's your biggest question about what's going to happen next year and what you're watching based on what we've heard from the president or his top officials today and yesterday?
Well, the question I've asked from the beginning is how much have we cooperated with opposition figures and forces and factions inside the country? How much help are we giving the opposition? What are we doing to find alternative leaders other than those in the regime itself? What resources are we giving to the opposition? Are we giving them telecommunications? Are we giving them money? Are we giving them weapons? What can we do to put more pressure on the regime, not just from the attacks from the sky, but on the ground, that after the attacks finish, which they will at some point, if the regime has not already collapsed by then, how to continue the struggle with the Iranian people?
We'll see if those questions get answered. Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm joined tonight by CNN's global affairs analyst, Brett McGurk, and our military analyst, Lieutenant General Mark Schwartz. And General, when you look at this and you see about the potential for ground operations, what's your sense of at least what they're preparing to give themselves the potential to do?
Well, I think first, the intent of bringing these 82nd Airborne paratroopers forward is to take the slack out of, potential employment of ground forces. Obviously, the Marines, 2 MUs are moving into the area of operations as well. Marines and infantry from the United States Army they do a multitude of tasks, but seizing terrain is certainly high on that list.
I mean, if this, let's say the president does this, and we don't know that he is going to, but if he does, can you explain to us what that would look like in the initial phase at least?
Well, what's coming in with the MU is the rotary wing lift that would be necessary to bring forces.
Something's breaking with Trump in his cabinet right now. We're going to listen in.
Effective probably being the more important word, JD, don't you think?
Yes, sir.
And we wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
I think you do fantastically well. Congratulations to you. An amazing family that were here yesterday in the Oval. Sworn in, his family's amazing, so thank you very much. We're now on day 41 of the disgraceful Democrat shutdown of Mark Wayne's department. Congratulations. He came into his department that shut down. I think he shut down by the radical Democrats. But Democrats are really punishing the American people. I saw today on one of the shows where they were interviewing people at the airport, and they're all angry at the Democrats. They're saying they're actually angry at Schumer. I didn't think anyone knew his name. One woman said, that Schumer is disgraceful. He's a disgrace to our country. But they're angry at the Democrats. They know what's happening. But they're punishing the American people, including travelers at airports, all in the quest to return to open borders and give amnesty to illegal alien criminals. They want to give amnesty to some of the criminals that came into our country, just about all of them, actually, if you look at it. They love sanctuary cities, which is a sanctuary for criminals. They want to make sure they're taken care of. That's what we're fighting about. That's really what they're fighting. They don't talk about that, but that's what they're fighting about. They want to protect criminals. In many cases, 11,888 murders. Many of them, I will say, are gone now because of us. We got them out. But still have some left. Should have never happened. Should have never been allowed to come into our country. But we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let the Democrats get away with this stuff. And people are wise to them. So they need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures. This morning, I want to give an update on the Operation Epic Fury, which is an appropriate name because we are absolutely obliterating them. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been hitting Iran's military capabilities at a level that few people have ever seen before. People never knew there was such a capability. We're the strongest military anywhere in the world by far. I built it during my first administration, and I used it during my second administration. Unfortunately, because I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a display of force and precision and skill like nothing the world has really witnessed, although you get a pretty good witnessing of it in Venezuela also. And that was a smaller version of what we're doing now. We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying their defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles. And the missile launchers, without the launchers, the missiles don't do any good. And we've knocked out probably close to 90% of the launchers, probably more than 90% of the missiles themselves. Between some they fired and more than they fired, we knocked out. We've also destroyed a lot of the factories. We're continuing to do that, but a lot of the factories where they manufacture the drones and the missiles. The drones too are way down, but the reason they're down is they go one way and they don't come back, because for the most part we're shooting them down. But we also are able to, we've really done tremendous damage to the places where they make them. And just so we set the record straight, because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news and all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know that. And only a total fool. And they're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way. And they're great negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. We should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because
There's a little bit of an increase in oil futures and in natural gas futures as Trump is speaking.
years ago, they had free reign under Biden. Sleepy Joe, worst president in the history of our country. What he allowed to happen to our country at the borders, and even with a thing like this. But not just him. Every president for 47 years, every president should have done this. They should have done it a long time ago, because you cannot give lunatics a nuclear weapon, and they would have had a big one. It stopped really when we did the B2, but even before that, the Barack Hussein Obama, what he did where he gave them the Iran nuclear deal, gave them free will toward a nuclear weapon. Basically, he chose Iran over Israel and others that didn't want him to do it. But I terminated that deal. Had I not terminated that deal, you would have had a nuclear weapon years ago, and it would have been used, guaranteed. And one of the reasons you know about the guarantee is because their neighbors were sort of like bystanders. They weren't involved very much. They didn't choose heavy sides. They didn't want to, because people were concerned with Iran. There was a big black cloud over the Middle East. They were concerned, but all of a sudden the West starts, and they start shooting at these five, in particular, 5 countries. They start shooting at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Oman. They start shooting at them. Everybody was shocked, including us. You know why? Because they're sick. And they had a plan to take over the Middle East. And some of those missiles that were shot at them were locked long before we even started this process. They were locked and loaded and aimed at those countries. They wanted to take over the Middle East. But we happened to come along, so it wasn't so easy. So right now their Navy is sunk in the largest elimination of a foreign Navy that has taken place, maybe ever, but certainly since World War II. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and communications capabilities are totally dismantled. And one of the problems they do have when they deal with us is we deal with people, and the people aren't able to communicate with anybody else, because all of their leadership has been gone. The first level is gone, and they meant to pick a new level, and they're gone. They're all gone because they didn't make a deal, and because they're sick people. They're really sick. They're really sinister, sick people. And if anybody thinks it was okay to have a group of people like this to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapons, and if we didn't attack with the B-2 bombers, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks of that, maybe 4 weeks. But between 2 and 4 weeks, they were planning to have a nuclear weapon. And we didn't hit them at that time with the B-2 bombers. And one of the great air raids in history, maybe the greatest. Dark at night, no moon, no light. Every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that place. So it's now buried deep under earth. And it was an amazing thing, but they would have a nuclear, and they would have used it without question. And you know that because why did they shoot all these countries that weren't even really involved with them? They weren't involved. They had no big problems because they're sick, because they wanted to take over the Middle East, not just Israel. Certainly Israel would have been the first on their list. They would have used nuclear weapons, a nuclear, you don't need too many of them. But they would have used a nuclear weapon on Israel, and they would have used it on the other in the neighbors. And then they would have come after us. And if we had a weak president, they would have done great damage. Unfortunately, you don't have a weak president. I knew what was happening. And I think we've been proven right. They took one missile went 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous Ireland, the island that the UK was very afraid to give us because they didn't want to get dragged in. But we don't want to get dragged into their wars either. You know? One thing we're very disappointed, I'll say publicly, we're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said, 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics, and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this, they didn't come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated, they said, we'd love to send ships. They actually made a statement, a couple of them, that we want to get involved when the war's over. No, it's supposed to get involved with the war's beginning, or even before it begins. We had the UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. We don't need them. We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. And we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, I mean, we're way ahead. Think of it, they have no Navy, and they had good ships. 154 ships have been shot there and are resting very nicely at the bottom of the sea. And we did that in a matter of less than a week. Because we have the greatest military in the world by far, nobody even close. So we estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. 26 days in, we're really a lot ahead of schedule. The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know, that's why they're talking to us. And not only, they wouldn't talk otherwise, but they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over their cities and towns and destroy all of their crazy nuclear weapons and missiles and drones that they're building. And we're doing that. They now have a chance to make a deal, but that's up to them. And they'll tell you, we're not negotiating. We will not negotiate. Of course they're negotiating. They've been obliterated. Who would negotiate? They are begging to make a deal. We'll see if we can make the right deal. And they make the right deal, then the strait will open up. Hormuz Strait will open up. And even now, we don't know if there are any mines. You know, they have 22 they call mine droppers. Think of it, who would have 22 mine droppers? This is a boat that drops mines. Who has 22 mine droppers? Except for people with very evil intention. So every one of those mine droppers has been struck with the same weapon we used to stop drugs from coming into the United States of America. When we hit those boats, it's the exact same weapon, extremely effective. We have unlimited supplies and extremely effective. But they have no more mine droppers. By the way, speaking of drugs, we're 98% down drugs coming in by water, by the ocean, by the sea. 98%. And we're trying to find out who are the 2% because we think they're the bravest men anywhere in the world. Maybe women. But whoever's on those boats is very brave or doesn't watch television. But where drugs coming in by sea, coming in by water, are 98% down. And now we'll stop the drugs coming in by land. The land is the easy one. You had to stop the water. A lot of it came into the water. Now it's all pinched. And these people are trying to come in by land. And we will, that's the easy one. But we had to take care of the water first. Nobody's coming. Virtually nothing is coming in anymore. It was hundreds of millions of dollars a week were coming in by water. They now have the chance, that is Iran, to to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, we're their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. Well, there's not a thing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it, you know? Tell you if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it. They can't shoot our jets. We have the best military equipment in the world, not even a contest. You see that with Venezuela? They had other equipment, they didn't have ours, it didn't work. Didn't work. Think of it, we did the situation in Venezuela. It was a great military operation, getting a very, very dangerous man who's killed a lot of people, forced people into our country. Incredible. He emptied his prisons in Venezuela, emptied his prisons into our country. And I hope that charge will be brought at some point, because that was a big charge that hasn't been brought yet. It should be brought. He emptied his prisons into our country and was a major purveyor of drugs coming into our country. And he's now been captured and, I guess be given a fair trial. But I would imagine there are other trials coming, because they've really sued him just in a fraction of the kind of things that he's done. Other cases are going to be brought, as you probably know. In the meantime, with Iran, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, and nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to. If you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression: never forget. Never forget. So as we end threats to...
He just tested the Europeans if they are going to help in the Asian theater when we go against China. That's what just happened. And if you watch the clips, but when he's talking about this, look at Pete Hegseth looking at Rubio, and he's grinning.
America abroad, we're focused here, home, on building the greatest economy in the history of the world. Now, before this started, the Dow hit 50,000. The S&P hit 7,000. Both of those achievements were not achievable. Every one of you, most of you, I guess, said you'll never hit 50,000 during a 4-year period because it was too high a number. Well, we hit it in our first year. And I said, well, now we have to take an excursion to Iran, and we have to stop this maniac who's no longer with us. The supreme leader wasn't so supreme, no longer with us. It's very sad. But we have to stop him from blowing up the world, blowing up the Middle East, and blowing up our country. And we did that. And frankly, I thought the oil prices would go up more, and I thought the stock market would go down more. Hasn't been nearly as severe as I thought. I think they have confidence in maybe the American president and maybe the people sitting around this table. But Americans filing their taxes this year are receiving record-setting refunds. It's been a very big story. Well, it should be a big story. I don't think you write about it that much. I speak about it. I speak about it because if I speak about it, those people here, you don't write about it. You don't write about the drug prices going down. Be going down 30, 40, 50, 60%, 70%. Favored nations, called most favored nations, we're going to be paying the lowest price anywhere in the world before we paid the highest price in the world, Bobby, right? And now we're going to pay the lowest price in the world. That's quite a difference. It's a difference of from 40 to 70 and 80 and even 90%. That's a pretty big difference. But we're slashing regulations, and investment is pouring in from all over the world. We have the most investment of any country in history has been put into our country in the last year. And again, we had to take a little detour. Won't be long. Gonna end soon. We had to take a little detour, go to Iran, and we had to put out a fire. Very dangerous fire that could have blown up big portions of the world, if not the whole thing. So tomorrow we'll be announcing a variety of actions that we're taking to support American farmers. We never forget, we love the farmers. We gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We had a tremendous amount of tariff money come in. And we continue to have. We've done, as you know, the Supreme Court gave us a very unfortunate, foolish ruling. A ruling that gives the people that have ripped off our country for many years, gives them some money back. It's one of those things. It's a terrible, terrible, horrible mistake they made, but it's okay because we have another method that's just as good. We'll use the other method. But because the tariff money has been so substantial, we gave our farmers who have been mistreated by some countries, we gave them $12 billion, and they're extremely happy, and they deserve it. They've been great. They never complain. They just go out and they farm, and they wouldn't do anything different. They wouldn't trade jobs with any of you, except maybe some of the fake media. I don't know. Somehow I don't see that. I like their job better, actually. I love the farmers. So we give them $12 billion. So in just a few moments, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will discuss the actions that we're taking to address energy prices, which have not gone up as much as I thought, Scott, to be honest with you. And you know, it's not over, so maybe it'll go up a little bit more. It's all going to come back down to where it was and probably lower. And my predictions have been right. Trump was right about everything. They have a new hat. Trump was right about everything. He's pretty right. But Scott's going to address that. And I think before we go very much further, I want to ask Vice President J.D. Vance to say a few words about where we are with the situation. He's involved with Steve and with Janet on negotiations. And then some of the others will speak. We'll have Marco say a few words. Pete Hegseth, who was born for this role. I mean, he's doing a great job. They gave him a hard time. And now people, I'll tell you, somebody came up to me yesterday, gave you a very hard time, said, you know, I made a mistake. Pete Hegseth is doing a good job. So when I tell you who, you're not even going to believe it. He said, Hegseth, he gave you such a nasty hard time. But you're doing great. And then Steve is going to speak, and Scott will speak last. And if we have any questions, we'll take some questions. You may have questions. I doubt it, but you may have some. So, JD, please.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. It's good to see everybody. Proud to be part of this team. Proud to be serving the president of the country. So just say a couple things. The first of all is the president summarized this very ably. But look, the Iranian conventional military is effectively destroyed. They don't have a navy. They don't have the ability to hit us like they could have even a few weeks ago. What that does is that gives us options, Mr. President. Now, there's been a lot of reporting about diplomatic options, about negotiations. There's, of course, Pete and his team. There are further military options. But what we have now that we didn't have when the president took over just a little over a year ago is the ability to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. Because when I say options, I think it's important the American people know options for what? And it's options to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. You talk about people who walk into a crowded supermarket and have a vest on, and they blow up the vest and a couple of people get killed, and that's a terrible tragedy. What happens when what's on the vest is not something that can kill a couple of people, but can kill many, many tens of thousands of people? That is the most important American national security objective that exists for any administration at any time, is you don't want the worst people in the world to have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president is doing this. That's why the president cares so much about this particular issue. I'll let Steve talk a little bit about the details of the negotiation, but the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Marco is I'm very mindful, of course, that we have a lot of folks overseas fighting very ably for the United States of America, and Pete and the whole team, we're very proud of them, but they're fighting at a time where we're about to enter as Christians the most important week of the Christian calendar, the Holy Week that celebrates the return of Jesus Christ to Jerusalem. And so I want to say to all of my fellow American Christians, but particularly those serving in the Gulf, that I wish you all a very blessed Easter, a very blessed Holy Week, and we continue to stand behind you and continue to support you every step of the way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Marco?
The most important job any president has is to keep the American people safe. And every president says it, but we have a president that means it and does something about it.
As the president outlined very clearly to the world on the night this operation began, Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. For 47 years, Iran has been killing Americans and attacking Americans across this planet. And other presidents had an opportunity to do something about it. And they all warned about how Iran was dangerous, but they refused to act. And this president's not someone that's going to refuse to act. He's not going to leave a danger like this in place. He's going to address it, and that is what he is doing. From the very first night of this operation, the president made it very clear. People like this, and now what I'm talking about is not the people of Iran. The people that run this country are radical Shia clerics. These are religious fanatics. Look what they are doing now at their weakest point. This is the weakest Iran has ever been, and look at what they're doing. They're attacking embassies. They're attacking hotels. Imagine what these people would do if they had a nuclear weapon. That is an unacceptable risk for the world. By the way, the president's not just doing a favor to the United States and to our people. This is for the world. He defined very clearly on the first night of this operation what the goal was. We were going to destroy Iran's Navy, and that is happening. We were going to, if it hasn't already happened, I'll let Pete speak to the specifics of it. We were going to destroy their missile launching capabilities. We're well on our way to achieving that goal. We were going to destroy the factories so they couldn't make more missiles and more drones, and that is moving forward. Every single objective the president clearly laid out on the first night of this operation is being effectuated. Again, Pete will speak to the specifics of it. This has been an incredibly successful operation. Every day, it may not get covered because, we're unlike them. We're not bombing embassies and hotels. We're hitting military targets. But every day, the Department of War lets the drummer get wicked over every portion of Iran that has these military capabilities, and the results are going to bear fruit for the world. The world is going to be a safer and a better place when President Trump's mission here is achieved. And frankly, I think countries around the world, even those that are out there complaining about this a little bit, should actually be grateful that the United States has a president that's willing to confront a threat like this and not allow it to continue to persist. Because these people will kill as many Americans as they have a chance to do, and if they have a nuclear weapon, as the vice president pointed out, they could kill millions of Americans in the future, and that is a risk that was not going to continue to exist as long as we have this president.
Thank you, Marco. It's very interesting because yesterday I was watching, is it Anthony Blinken, and he was saying that they should have done it, but they didn't do it. Nobody did it. Nobody did it for 47 years, Marco. That's the number, 47. I guess now it's 48 because we've been saying 47 for a long time. It's probably 48. But for 47, 48 years, every president should have done this. And some are saying now that they made a big mistake in not doing it, but we're taking care of business. Steve Witkoff, please.
Mr. President, it is my distinct honor to be a member of your cabinet and to report to you and your team on our negotiations with Iran. Mr. President, you directed Jared and I to pursue a diplomatic resolution with Iran prior to Operation Epic Fury, which we did. However, it became quite clear during these meetings with the Iranian negotiating team that we could not make a deal that fulfilled your objectives of the following: no enrichment whatsoever, no chance of weaponizing whatsoever, decommissioning of Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan, which you destroyed in Operation Midnight Hammer, no stockpiling of any material, which they flagrantly violated, turning all enriched material over to us, and a cutback in Iran's missile inventory and range capability of those same missiles. Throughout our meetings with the Iranians, we heard the following from them. The Iranians have the inalienable right to enrich. Then we heard they possessed enough 60% enriched material, 460 kilograms, to make 11 atomic bombs. Finally, we heard the following statement. They would not give up diplomatically, but we could not win militarily. In other words, they were again miscalculating the success of Midnight Hammer, which was a total success. These are incontrovertible signs, among many other signs, sir, that their regime had not given their negotiating team authority to make a deal required by you. We conferred with you, and all the other members of your foreign policy team, Susie Wise, Pete Hegseth, the chairman, Marco Rubio, JD, Scott Bessent, Chris Wright, John Radcliffe, throughout all of these negotiations, and we were repeatedly rebuffed on everything we asked for. I have no doubt that we exhausted all efforts on behalf of a peaceful resolution, as you directed. Jared and I both agreed that the Iranians were there to buy time until a weaker president arrived. This was a flawed strategy, as your clear direction was to never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon today or any time in the future. Against that backdrop and our compelling military successes in Epic Fury, we have had multiple reach outs from the region and others who want to play a role in ending this conflict peacefully. I can report to you today that we have, along with your foreign policy team, presented a 15-point action list that forms the framework for a peace deal. This has been circulated through the Pakistani government, acting as the mediator, and this has resulted in strong and positive messaging in talks, as you just indicated to the press. But these are sensitive diplomatic discussions, and you have directed us to maintain confidentiality on the specific terms and not negotiate through the news media as others do. I can say this: we will see where things lead, and if we can convince Iran that this is the inflection point with no good alternatives for them, other than more death and destruction. We have strong signs that this is a possibility, and if the deal happens, it will be great for the country of Iran, for the entire region, and the world at large. Your policy of peace through strength is the most effective tool for a diplomatic resolution here, just as this policy was an effective tool in each and every one of all of the other conflicts you settled in your first year. Iran is looking for an off-ramp following your powerful threat on Saturday. Your indications that you are willing to listen to peace proposals have been well received. You've instructed us that your preference is always peace, and that we should make that our priority. We have delivered that message, sir, along with the 15 points for peace. Finally, we have told Iran one last thing: don't miscalculate again. Yeah. Along with the 15 points for peace. Finally, we have told Iran one last thing: don't miscalculate again.
Thank you very much for doing a great job. Everybody around the table has done a great job. Pete Hegseth?
I'll start kind of where you left off, Mr. President. Thank you for doing the work of the modern military. Never in recorded history has a nation's military been so quickly and effectively neutralized. Operation Epic Fury is not an endless war. It's a decisive campaign with clear objectives to destroy Iran's offensive military capabilities and ensure they never obtain a nuclear weapon. This is stuff for the history books. This is stuff for legacy. Mr. President, you are acting now to ensure future generations do not have to live under the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran. However, you wouldn't know it if you listened to the dishonest hate Trump media, as you referenced. The folks here in the room, these cameras, they have a choice. You're either informing the American people of the truth or you're not. Because I hear it from my people every day. Behind every headline you write, there's a helicopter crew in the air. And behind every news banner you write, there's a battalion on the move. And behind every fake news story, there's an F-35 pilot executing a dangerous mission. My message to the media is get it right. This actually isn't something new to me. I may be a young guy, Mr. President, but I'm not a rookie in this realm. In 2007, I helped lead the surge, the public fight for the Iraq surge. Stood and watched people stand in the Senate and declare the war is lost before it even started. Who was that? It was Harry Reid. That was the Democrats and the media working hand in glove. Back then, it was 3 years into a war. Now we're 3 weeks into an operation. But see, unlike Iraq, this isn't a tie. This is not parity. This is not chaos. This is success, pure American success, on plan, and as the president said, ahead of pace. Over 10,000 enemy targets destroyed, over 140, I think now you're right, Mr. President, over 150 naval vessels sunk, underground facilities destroyed, their defense industrial base in shambles, and overnight, not only do they not have a Navy, Mr. President, they no longer have a Navy commander. IRGC's Navy commander was killed overnight in operation. So no Navy leader. Now that here's the thing about the media though, if President Trump had not acted, you'd be screaming, why not? And now that he has taken decisive action, you're asking, well, why did you? It's the same old tired playbook, TDS in your DNA. But the hardworking, God-fearing, patriotic Americans out there know better. And you alluded to this, President Obama, Mr. President. Here's a fact that you don't hear on your networks, but we know. Many of the Iranian military factories and bases that we're systematically destroying were paid for by the pallets of American cash that Barack Obama flew into Tehran under the Iran deal. You might call it an inconvenient truth. Iran took our money and turned it into weapons and bunkers and ammo. And now we're destroying those weapons and you're writing, Mr. President, that grievous wrong. And make no mistake, we had to act. And our objectives are clear. No nukes, no Navy, and a complete dismantling of their missile program and defense industrial base. And as Marco pointed out, that mission, and the VP as well, has not changed since day one. Yet, 2 days ago, they shot 2 failed missiles on a target 4,000 kilometers away. For years, they told the world that their missiles could only range 2 kilometers. Surprise. Yet again, Iran lied. And to the world, I say London is 4,000 kilometers from Iran. Washington, D.C. is 3,300 kilometers from Venezuela, another country President Trump did something about that partnered for a long time with Iran. So you're telling us that Iran is not a threat to the world or to the U.S., President Trump knows better. And here's what success actually looks like right now. You mentioned it, Mr. President. A-10 Warthogs, if you know them, you love them, and Apache helicopter gunships are flying strike missions inside Iranian airspace and throughout the Strait of Hormuz at will. See, you only send these slow, low-flying, close air support platforms when the enemy has no meaningful air defenses left. Their presence is proof that Iran's air defenses are gone. Their command and control is shattered, their top leaders hiding in underground bunkers, while their mid-level commanders are being crushed in the field. The morale of their fighters plummeting. We see that disconnect daily. They're privately admitting, as you said, Mr. President, very heavy losses. We know that. President Trump has given us a clear mission. Our capabilities are only going up and Iran's are plummeting. We are here to win, and we're full speed ahead. So, Steve, we appreciate your efforts. We pray for a deal, and we welcome a deal, and we have the ultimate deal maker to make it happen. But in the meantime, as I said yesterday, the Department of War will continue negotiating with bombs. War is negotiation by other means. And finally, I want to thank our incredible troops, our pilots, crews, sailors, refuelers, air defenders, the absolute best of America, the real 1% of our country. This president, President Trump, has your back. And I know this cabinet prays for you every single day. We ask the American people to do the same as they continue in this mission. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great. I think before I ask Scott to say a couple of words, it would be great if people like the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois would say, please come in and stop the crime. A beautiful young lady was killed the other day, and the father was a very good friend of Dan Scavino. And he took it very hard. Dan took it very hard. Like the father, friends. They grew up together. And it's a young lady who
Let me just interject really quick here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This will help with musculature, help to improve your cardiovascular health, improve brain function, increase your energy levels and your metabolism, help with your immune system and endocrine system. This is a great supplement to take every day to slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video.
From Louisiana called me, can you help me with New Orleans? They just had the Mardi Gras. He said it was the safest Mardi Gras we've ever had. Sounds terrible to say, no murders. You know, it sounds like, who would say this? No murders, but they always had murders. They had a lot of crime during Mardi Gras. He said virtually no crime. We had the troops down there. Memphis, Tennessee, I just got back. We were there. Crime is down 75%. In a short period of time, we're there 5 months. We could do that for Chicago. We could do that for New York. We could do that for LA. And we could do that for, frankly, San Francisco. I know that the mayor is trying very hard. He's a Democrat, but he's trying very hard. But we could do it much more effectively because he can't do what we do. He can't take people out from the city and bring them back to the country from where they came, where they were in prisons. They were allowed to go in prisons. There were drug dealers, the highest level drug dealers, murderers, 11,888 murders. We do things that they can't do. I had friends calling me up from San Francisco. Could you give him a chance? I said, absolutely. If you want him, I'll give him a chance. He's trying. He's doing okay, but we can do much better. We can make it a lot safer than it is. San Francisco, a great city, was a great city, could quickly become a great city again. But, you know, they're going very slowly. I tell my friends they're very substantial people. They're in a certain business where people have made a lot of money. I don't hope that lasts. But they have a tremendous potential. It's one of the greatest cities in the world. Now it's got a lot of crime. And the mayor's really trying. Again, a Democrat trying. And I spoke to him. He just wants to have a chance. And I said, we'll give you a chance. But we can solve it very quickly. This young lady would be around today if we were around, because we have nobody coming through our border. I mean, literally for 9 months it's zero. It's hard to believe that number could be possible because millions of people came in through Biden. But nobody even tries. We don't have the caravans of thousands, 25, 30,000 people pouring into our border. They come up in caravans. We don't have caravans anymore. There's no such thing anymore. There's a name that I think I developed, but somebody developed it, but I think it was me. I thought it was inappropriate. Thousands of people would come up and just barge into our country, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And this man came in, Dan, right? And he came in through the ridiculous open border of Biden. If we were there, the election was rigged. What are you going to do? Came back, big comeback. But if we were there, we wouldn't have had people coming through. It's amazing. You know, it's so easy now because everyone knows they're not getting through. We don't have any caravans. Once they know that. When it was easy to come through. When I heard that they had an open border policy, I said, boy, this is going to be, I couldn't believe it. When it was actually, you know, it dawned on me because I had built 1,000 miles of wall and we were finishing up some and he didn't want to finish it up. I said, they really do want to have an open border. And we got it finished. But that young lady would be alive today. And she'd be alive for another reason, because we would have the National Guard in Chicago and in New York and in other places. And they love doing it. It's like training. To be honest, it's actually training. I never want to take them out of DC. I mean, maybe somebody later on will do it, but I never want to take it. You know, the people, they look, they say, we feel so good, we feel so safe. We see these beautiful, strong people, and they're so nice. They open the doors for people. They carry bags. They pick up paper when they see paper on the ground. I looked at DC last night. I drove to make a speech, and I drove through, and I said, take me this way, take me that way. The city's clean. The fences are down. You don't have homeless all over your parks. I mean, we had parks. There was no room for anything else other than Almost, it's all clean and nice. And it'll be even more beautiful in a year from now. And we have some projects that are, this ballroom is going to be something that's so beautiful for the city, so desperately needed by presidents. I mean, now it's no secret the military wanted it more than anybody. It was supposed to be secret, but it became unsecret because of people that are really unpatriotic and saying things. But doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's going to be great. We're building an arc, a triumphal arc, which will be incredible for the city. Incredible. We're fixing up what was the Kennedy Center. You know, I was honored when the board changed the name a little bit. Actually, it shows that the Republican and the Democrats, they work together. It's really something we work together. So I think it's a great symbol, actually. But we're doing a lot of work. That building's ready to fall down. It's in terrible shape. We're closing it. We're going to open it with a bang in less than 2 years. It'll come in under budget, ahead of schedule. That's what I did. It won't be like the Federal Reserve that's costing $4 billion or something thereabouts. Think of it, $4 billion. You know, it's amazing. I said to the group before, I said, everything I do, I get sued. I build under budget, ahead of schedule. I get sued over a ballroom that's going to be the most beautiful ballroom in the country, so desperately needed. You won't have to have tents sitting on the wet White House lawn. If it rains, you get wiped out. To honor the president of China or the president of France or the president of somewhere. You could have the greatest, we get sued by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They don't know what they're doing. Then I just found out we got sued by that group and another group, I guess, on the fixing up of again, I'll use the old name, Kennedy Center, because they're not fixing up Trump County. It's going to be beautiful when you add the name Trump. But we got sued. And all I'm doing is fixing it up. We're fixing broken marble. We're putting on a roof because it leaks like a sieve. We're fixing steel that's broken. It's the same building, same exact building. The fixing is going to be beautiful. It's going to be so beautiful and safe. It's actually unsafe. You got some of those columns on the outside that were painted a fake gold. Now we painted them a beautiful white color. Beautiful cream white. It's beautiful. Everyone's saying it's so much more beautiful now instead of a cheap. You can't imitate gold. See, I'm a gold person. It's all real stuff. You can't imitate it. Someday they'll discover a paint that will look like gold, and the guy's going to be the richest man in the world. You can't imitate real gold. Just doesn't. It's 24 karat, which is what this building deserves. But think of it. I get sued because I'm fixing up the Trump Kennedy Center. We're going to make it gorgeous and safe. We're fixing new windows, new this, but just all fixing. I got sued. And preservationists. But you know who they didn't sue? The man that took this beautiful Federal Reserve building. That's small, much smaller than the hotel I built. I built the Waldorf Astoria Hotel down the road. And it was a beautiful job for $201 million. It's bigger, I think, than the Federal Reserve building. And it's got rooms and bathrooms, and it's not like just an open office space, which is much cheaper to build. Think of this. I hear he's going to be over $4 billion for a little building. He doesn't get sued by anybody but me. I sue because it's either somebody's very crooked, which has to be, because what happened to all that money? You can't sue. I would have done that building for $25 billion. It's going to cost maybe $4 billion, and we have a great new person coming in to take over the Fed. And Kevin may not ever have an office. Because I don't know, they're going to be able to build. I passed that building the other day. It's a see-through. You know what see-through means? There's no walls up. And they're going to spend. But the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is a joke, by the way, they didn't sue that building. They didn't sue anybody. But they sue me and I build. And by the way, my buildings, it's all donations. Rich people and people are putting up the money. Zero taxpayer dollars. Is that right, Scott? Zero taxpayer dollars. Stuff is all done for free and I get sued. This could only happen to Trump. But they don't sue the guy whose interest rates are too high. That's why we call him Too Late. His name is Jerome Powell. We call him Jerome Too Late Powell. And done a terrible job. He suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, as he probably should, because I hit him pretty hard, so I don't blame him. But they don't sue a man who has taken this gorgeous building, ripped it down from the inside, taking ceilings that are as beautiful as you've ever seen, taking the ceilings down instead of leaving them, taking walls down that were 2 feet thick of solid concrete and plaster, replacing them with 6-inch walls.
We're going to leave that there. President Trump holding the first cabinet meeting since the start of the Iran war. Iran is begging me to make a deal, not me. He said Iranian negotiators are very different and strange.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol is really important to maintain your muscles and to gain musculature, especially after age 40. This is for males or females. Make sure you do some resistance training. By taking Myotrol, you're going to help with the gene expression to reduce atrophy. Really important. Another great supplement to take is Clarity Factor. This is a very powerful neurostack that will get rid of brain fog, allow you to concentrate on tasks, and over time, you will have better connections between your neurons. You'll think faster and have better memory. And Good Night Formula. Good Night Formula will help you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, allow you to consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and be well rested. By having good sleep, you're going to slow down the aging process and improve your brain function. So please go to my store, get the Good Night Formula, the Clarity Factor, and the Myotrol as part of a stack to help with your brain function and to help with your musculature. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link's in the description of this video. Make sure you use discount 5, all caps, discount the number 5, to save $5 off any order.
On Saturday, that unless they opened the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours and made sure there were no obstacles to ships going through that waterway,
do you know what he's talking
start
about?
bombing their
Is it true?
infrastructure, starting with the largest.
They ripped it down. We have a moron at the Fed. Who wouldn't be lowering interest rates right now? But I want to thank Janine Pirro and Pam and her group for having the courage to bring this suit. And I believe that the contractor on that job is probably one of the richest men in the country right now. I believe that it's not possible to spend that kind of money. 3 billion, 4 billion, nobody knows, nobody has any idea what it is. But it's over 3 billion, and it's probably going to be over 4 billion by the time they finish. And it may never get finished. Unless I take it over, I'll get it finished. But it can never be what it was. It's never going to have those beautiful ceilings. It's never going to have those incredible walls. The walls were 1.5 feet thick of solid masonry. They ripped them down for no reason. And I just gave you the story. And just to finish on this one. So I told that story to somebody and said, yeah, but it's not the same thing. I said, you're right. This one is better. It writes. So the guy said to me, you don't have to pay me, sir. I'll give them to you for nothing. I said, no, I don't want that. Let me pay you. I want to pay you. No, sir, you don't have to. You're the president of the United States. He was shocked. The head of Sharpie gets a call. I don't even know who the hell he is. He said, is this really the president? He said, no, you don't have to pay me, sir. This is such an honor. I said, no, I want to pay you. He said, what would you like to pay? I said, how about $5 a pen? He said, that's all right, whatever the hell we agreed to. Peanuts. As opposed to 1,000. And these were $1,000 pens. And we were giving them out. Sometimes, you were there for Sundays. I'd have 30, 40 people standing behind me. I'd give out 40 pens to people. Then somebody would say, could I have a couple extra? So I go like this. You want 5? Here, 5. The bottom line is, they're better pens. It's a business story. So for $5, could be 0, but for $5, I get a much better pen than for $1,000. and I can hand them out, and actually they become hot as a pistol, so what can I tell you? With that, could I give it to, please, a man who's done a great job at Treasury? Good luck, Scott.
Well, there is always a tough act to follow, but that is very illustrated. Your economic leadership has made our military mission possible. Mr. President, national security, as you always say, is economic security. Your leadership has shown the American people that there is no prosperity without security. That our mighty military on one side, but the U.S. economic strength is fighting off this evil regime. The Iranians believe they are fighting a two-front war. It is the military war that our great warriors are prosecuting, but on the other side, they are trying to take control of the global economy through a choke point that we believe does not exist and that we will overcome. The historic operation at Epic Fury seized a generational opportunity to demolish a regime that has coordinated over 4 decades of global terror and claimed thousands of American lives. Many people, especially the Democrats, underestimate the will of the American people for short-term volatility for 50 years of safety that we are going to have on the other side of this. And I believe energy prices will be lower, inflation will be lower before we had the appearance of security, which is not real security. Now, the American people and the world will have absolute security. Through your maximum pressure campaign, Treasury has worked to uncover all financial lifelines to the regime and cut them off. You gave that order last March. This was not something that happened overnight. This is something that has been contemplated for almost a year. They're finding that the Iranian financial system collapsed in December. We have systematically weakened Iran's ability to fund operations and procure weapons, and that required months of preparations. Threats to American national security have no place in the global economic system. The oil market is well supplied. We have taken actions to ensure oil supplies stranded at sea are made available to the global market. Your bold actions like the Development Finance Corporation's Maritime Reinsurance Program in conjunction with Central Command will soon provide shippers through the Gulf region with a level of security we have never seen before. Mr. President, we are starting to see more and more movement in and out of the Gulf today, and this is more than yesterday, and this is the beginning. I am confident that shipping traffic will continue to increase on a daily basis, even before we secure the straits. Turning to the home front, the U.S. economy remains strong. We had a strong economy thanks to you. We are the best insulated in the world thanks to your energy efforts in term 1 and term 2. The U.S. is an energy superpower. American workers' purchasing power is finally being restored. The latest figures indicate robust real compensation increases. We are starting to see the working family tax cuts benefits bearing fruit this tax season. 44% of tax returns have claimed at least one of your signature policies: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. The average tax refund is up more than 10% for working Americans. The economy you vitalized through your pro-growth policies is well positioned to withstand these temporary disruptions. The United States dollar has reasserted itself as a safe haven asset. The U.S. dollar has appreciated since the hostilities began because everyone knows, thanks to your efforts, the U.S. economy is the best position in the world and capital is flowing in. Efforts to reprioritize economic security are ensuring the United States remains secure, resilient, and prepared for the challenges ahead. As we approach the 250th anniversary, America will never be safer, more secure, militarily and economically. Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question. Is this guy Central Casting? I'm looking at him. I'm in Treasury. He might not be so good for war. I don't know. No, I'm agree with you. I'm looking at this guy. He's central casting. Even the glasses are perfect. What do you get? I think I want to get glasses. That's beautiful. Great job. That's really good. No, he's done a great job. You all have. Proud of you all. Do you have any questions?
Mr. President, are you going to go in for the uranium? Like, how do you secure Iran and?
Let's assume I was or I wasn't. Why would I ever answer?
Can you accomplish
What kind of a question? Am I going to go in? Oh, yeah, I'm going in. We're going tomorrow at 3 o'clock. How could you possibly ask a question and expect an answer? I don't know. But I don't know. I think you're a friendly person, too. It's just such a ridiculous question.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a report that potentially the U.S. is looking at diverting some munitions, air defenses that were meant for Ukraine to the Middle East. Is there any accuracy to that? Is that something you're considering?
Well, I'd have to ask you, but we do that all the time. You know, we have tremendous amounts of ammunition. We have them in other countries, like in Germany and all over Europe. We have, you know, we're packed. And sometimes we take from one and we use for another. We help Ukraine. Biden started, and he gave $350 billion away. Too much, way too much. And we sell it now to NATO. We sell it to NATO, and they probably give it to Ukraine. Mostly, I think they give it to Ukraine, but we get paid for everything that we give. We don't give anything anymore. That's a tough situation. The whole Ukraine situation is very, very tough. We're working very hard on getting that one solved. It doesn't have any impact on us, virtually nothing. In fact, if anything, I mean, we sell a lot of equipment for that unfortunate war. 25,000 people died last month, 25,000, so mostly soldiers. Some in the towns, but for the most part, soldiers. They're dying. Nobody's seen anything like it since World War II. It's a terrible situation, and hopefully that's going to get settled. You know, I settled 8 wars. And many of them, I think, were more difficult than this one. In theory, they were more difficult, but there's tremendous hatred between President Putin and President Zelensky. Tremendous hatred. I've seen it before, but I've never seen it maybe to this extent. And I think that's calming down a little bit, and I think we have a chance of getting it done. But it doesn't affect us thousands of miles away. That's why when I heard the head of Germany say, "This is not our war," about Iran. I said, well, Ukraine's not our war. We helped, but Ukraine's not our war. I thought it was a very inappropriate statement to make, but he made it. You can't erase it. But he felt that way. I said, well, you know, Ukraine's not our war. And it's not, but I would like to see all those young people stop being killed. When they're being killed, it's like a slaughterhouse. What's happening there is horrible. 25,000 on our last 2 months ago, was 31,000 people died in 1 month, Marco, right? I said, this is getting crazy. It's getting worse. Think of it, 31,000 soldiers, both Russian and Ukraine, died 2 months ago. 25,000 last month. And if I can solve that, it would be a great honor to do it. I wish it could have gone faster. I solved the other ones in 1 day that had been going for 32 years. We stopped one that was starting. It was already started. India and Pakistan, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a very fine gentleman, said President Trump solved something that was going to cost 10 million lives. That was going to cost a lot of lives, 2 nuclear nations. And those were complicated, but we got them done quickly. This one is, it's a shame. And the only reason I'm doing it, frankly, is because I want to stop death. I want to stop the death from happening. I think I'm going to go with a man that I've missed, Brian. I haven't seen you in a long time. Like this. He's been in a very strange location. I don't know. He's had a strange thing happen. But anyway, go ahead, Brian.
Well, good to see you too. Actually, good to see that you're too. You talk about gas prices coming down, obviously they will. Would you ever consider suspending the federal gas tax in order to kind of temporarily alleviate some?
Well, some people should do that. As an example, in California, every time prices go down, his prices go up because the gas tax is bigger than the tax itself, bigger than the product itself. It hasn't, I mean, we've thought about it, I guess, but honestly, when I did this, I knew it was going to be a little bit, we had the greatest economy ever. We had the greatest stock market in history. I said, we're going to take a little bit of a hit, a short-term hit. It's going to end up going much higher than it was, in my opinion. I said we're going to have a great stock market. Nobody thought we could get to 50,000 or 7,000 in the respective indices. Nobody thought that was going to happen, but it did in the first year. They said it couldn't happen in 4 years, that you wouldn't hit 50 in 4 years, but you could maybe get close. We hit it in the first year. And I said, this is a good time to solve a problem that you have to solve. And that's what I did. But the gas tax, people have talked about it. It's something we have in our pocket if we think it's necessary.
And if I follow real quickly, you just recently took off, Secretary Duffy, 17,000 truckers off the road that quite frankly could not speak English, which is a safety.
Yeah.
Could we ever extend that to Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, cab drivers, or someone who takes a lot of Ubers, a lot of my drivers?
Oh, well, that's not good. I didn't like that. Go ahead.
So that's a really good point. The problem is that our states are the ones that issue these licenses. So with commercial driver's licenses, we do have some federal control. But again, we have thousands of people who can't speak the language, long-standing rule, and it's a safety issue. But if you can't understand road signs, if you can't communicate with law enforcement when you're pulled over and communicate what's on your rig, huge problem. The last administration, Mr. President, they let truck driving schools self-certify that they were qualified to train truck drivers. And so this is like the Leering Center. So you pay $800 and you get a certificate that you passed a CDL driving school. And again, they have no skills. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the skills. They haven't gone through any of the testing. And then they get licenses, and they're killing Americans on our roads. So it's remarkable the rot that the last administration allowed to take place. We are ending that, and I need partnership with our states. Even California started to come on board. Even Gavin has started to play ball with us, which is surprising. Sure. Not all the way, a little bit of a ball.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just saw something that the nursing home business and the daycare centers in particular, they went out and inspected them in Minnesota, and they didn't exist. They're knocking on doors. Happens to be a young man, Nick, nice young man. He's done a very good job. They're knocking on doors. It's like homes, and they're getting hundreds of thousands of that. They didn't exist, and in California, it's worse. It's even worse. And I spoke with Russell. I said, Russell, don't send them any money. He said, but we have a court order that we have to. Can you believe it? A judge. The judges are really hurting this country. Our judges, Justice Roberts doesn't like what I say, but the judges are really hurting this country. And frankly, the justices, the Supreme Court, has really hurt our country too.
Do you have a new deadline, given that there are some talks now? Do you have a new deadline before taking?
No, I'll announce it right now. You're talking about a deadline for doing some pretty big damage, even bigger than we've done. We'll see. Look, we have very substantial talks going on with respect to Iran, with the right people. You know, I told you about a present, right? Steve, can I reveal the present? They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. This was 2 days ago. And they'll sail up tomorrow. That was 3 days ago. And I didn't think much about it. And then I watched the news and they said, a very good anchor actually, happened to be Fox. But I watched it and they said, something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess I guess they were right, and they were real, and I think they were Pakistani flagged. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're gonna send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats, and I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations. But I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're gonna give us a present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two illegal immigrants who were arrested at San Francisco airport for ignoring deportation orders. At the same time, as you highlighted, really great reception from American travelers for ICE agents. Is there a PR aspect of this that can allow future deportations to go on, less protesting, less outrage?
Yeah, it's amazing, because by putting ICE there, look, the press was very unfair to ICE, so was everyone else. These are great American patriots. They have a tough job. They have to find murderers and take them out of our country. I wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to do it. Most people wouldn't want to do it. They do it. And, 11,888 murders, and that's murders. That's not drug dealers. That's not lots of other things. It's not people from mental institutions. Entire jail populations were released from major countries and let into our country through the open border. And ICE has done an amazing job. I wouldn't want that job. It's a tough job, dangerous job. So what happens is, by putting them at the airport, and I just said, do me a favor, take off your masks. And they did, for that. Not for when they're looking for some, cold-blooded killers and they're in the night, but for that. And they did, they took them off. And the passengers, I see the interviews of people, they're saying, these are nice people. One person said, he's a very strong man, but he's a nice guy. He grabbed my bag, he helped the woman with a bag that she couldn't lift. And I'll tell you, I don't want to use the word rehab because there's nothing to rehab, but rehab from the press, because the press is so tough on them. And these crooks in Minnesota, these crooked politicians and dirty cops, they're dirty cops, they're dirty politicians. Waltz is a dirty, crooked politician. And the Attorney General is a crooked guy. He's no investigations, and I hope GED's going to do a great job. He's in charge of it now. Somebody who's very talented. But I think it's easy stuff. They say $19 billion. Think of it. Is missing. 19 billion. If we would solve half of the fraud problem, man, in this country, we'd have more than a balanced budget. We'd have a surplus. And in the case of Minnesota, it's very Somalia oriented. Think of it, these people come from a crooked country, disgusting country, one of the worst countries in the world. Acknowledged to be one of the worst countries in the world. Some people say it's the worst. They have no money, they have nothing. They come to our country, low IQs, and they rob us blind. Stupid people. And they rob us blind because we have crooked politicians and we have dirty cops. The Attorney General's a dirty cop. It's my opinion. It's only my opinion. And something should be done about him. Let's see what can be done.
Yesterday you said that you would not be able.
Excuse me?
Should not be able to charge administrative homes. They're charging some vessels to go through.
Oh, yeah. Well, should they be able to? I mean, they shouldn't be able to, but they're doing it a little bit. I don't look. Their capability is a lot less than it was 2 weeks ago, and with every week and every day, frankly, it gets less and less. All I can tell you is they're begging to make a deal. So let's see what happens. We may make Tell me about mail-in ballots. Go ahead. You may not use the mail-in ballot. You probably said, yeah, you did. You know what? Because I'm president of the United States, and because of the fact that I'm president of the United States, I did a mail-in ballot for elections that took place in Florida, because I felt I should be here instead of being in the beautiful sunshine.
You were in Palm Beach, sir, the last weekend.
That's right, and I decided that I was going to vote by mail-in ballot because I couldn't be there because I had a lot of different things. But we have exceptions for mail-in ballots. You do know that, right? So if you're away, we have an exception. If you're in the military, we have an exception. If you're on a business trip, we have an exception. If you're disabled, we have an exception. And if you're ill, if you're not feeling good, right? So I was away mostly in Washington DC, so I used the mail-in mail, but I appreciate the question because I know it was so well-meaning. Yeah.
Mr. President, I actually just looked at the company that owns Sharpie and they decided to be positive. Actually mentioned it.
By the way, they deserve it. It's a good product.
So you gave a 5-day deadline. Those oil tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz, is that a condition to move that 5-day deadline?
Well, we don't want anything impeded. We want ships to go through. We don't know that they've dropped any mines, by the way, because we blew up all their mine droppers, right? We blew up every one of them. They're gonna have to take them out on a rowboat or something. I don't know how the hell they get out there, but we don't really know. You might speak to it. We don't know. There could be a few of them out there, but that's a lot. You know, if you have $1 billion ship and you get hit by a mine, it's not the greatest thing in the world. So if you think the problem with that, that's not like you've decimated the military. If you think there may be a mine, that's a bad thought, and it stops things up. How are we doing in that regard?
Mr. President, you're right. We have so heavily degraded their coastal defense capabilities and their naval capabilities that any strategic or operational attempts to do those types of things are extremely limited. And we continue to move over the top of that. Now, whether Iran makes a wise choice or not to try to execute that is part of how this deal comes together. But with every passing day, the military pressure that we're putting on them lessens their ability to really hold that militarily at issue.
I mean, the problem with the issue of the Hormuz Straits is this: we've decimated them as a military. No Air Force, no Navy, very few rockets left. We blew up so many. Hard to manufacture. Same thing with drones. The leadership is good. The problem with the Straits is this: let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is unacceptable. We can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good. So it's really, you know, a little bit. But I have a feeling it's going to clean up pretty quickly. I could just say this: they want to make, and I probably heard a little negotiation. It gives them a little impetus to say, well, I wish you didn't say that, but they said yesterday that we weren't negotiating with them, and now they admit that we were negotiating with them. So they want to make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
So are you thinking of taking control of Iran's oil?
It's an option. I mean, I wouldn't talk about it, but it's an option.
Is that something you thought about?
Well, in Venezuela, we've done very well working with Venezuela, certainly. We've taken in billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, Venezuela is doing better right now than they've ever done in the history of their country. And sort of like a joint venture. But the United States has made a lot of money, Marco, right? Do you want to talk about that for a second?
About Venezuela?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Venezuela in the first 2 months of this year generated more revenue from oil sales than they had most of all of last year. But the money's not being stolen anymore. And it's being held in a U.S. Treasury blocked account. And to the extent it's flowing to the Venezuelan government, it's going to help people, like fund hospitals, pay teachers.
And we get a lot of it. And they got more than they have in many years. Think of it. We get a lot of it. We have a deal. We get a lot of it. We had 100 million, think of this, 100 million barrels we took in the first 2 weeks. 100 million barrels, that's a lot of oil. It's a lot of ships. And we got some and they got some. We paid for the ships. A lot of money left over. And Venezuela has done better now with us. Call it a partner, call it whatever you want. We've made a lot of money, and they've made a lot of money. We've paid for the cost of that military hit many, many times over. And we've only just started. Our relationship with Venezuela has been amazing. The people, actually, I'm the highest polling person. And in other words, after the presidency, I think I may go to Venezuela and run against Delcy. I may run against Delcy. It's an option. No, they like me in Venezuela, but it's an option for me. It's a wonderful option. Yes.
There's some reports that Gulf allies are concerned about winding down the war too soon and potentially leaving Iran.
Well, they'd probably like us to stay, but
But the concern.
If we don't stay, like, it's a beautiful thing about airplanes that go 2,000 miles an hour, is you can get back there very quickly. If we don't stay, we're gonna be protecting them. We know, they've been very good. Hey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, in particular, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, the three of them, Kuwait, Bahrain, they've been 100%. Now, in all fairness, they could have gone the other way. They were surprisingly missiled. They were shot at. Nobody ever thought they'd be shot at. UAE had 1,400 missiles aimed at them. Fortunately, they had the greatest anti-missile weapon in history called the Patriot. Almost every single missile was shot at. We had an incident recently where 101 missiles were shot at a certain thing that we own that's very valuable. 101 missiles going 2,000 miles an hour. Out of the 101 missiles, every single one of them was shot down in midair and fell into the ocean. It's amazing technology. There's nobody has equipment like we have.
Iran still has that enriched uranium. Is it even possible?
Well, you're gonna have to see, but I think we're in just very good shape. We're roaming. You know what we're doing? You know the word roaming free? We're over the skies with the most beautiful planes you've ever seen. Roaming free, there's not a damn thing they can do about it. It would be nice if, like the fake news New York Times, which is so fake, and the Wall Street Journal is terrible. I read a story today that I'm desperate to make a deal. If I was desperate, he'd be the first to know me. Let's get the hell out of there. I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care. I want to know. In fact, we have other targets we want to hit before we leave. We're hitting them on a daily basis. I can't talk about specifics. A lot of people said that wouldn't matter. Maybe it does matter. Who knows? But I wouldn't talk. It's like the question this young lady asked. Sorry about I embarrassed her. I don't want to embarrass you because I think she's a friendly reporter, so I'm sorry. But I can't say what we're going to do because if I did, I wouldn't be sitting here for long. They probably, what is it called, the 25th Amendment? They'd institute the 25th Amendment, which they didn't do with Biden, which is shocking.
The president was safe enough to leave the region because Steve said that they've got enough uranium to make 11 bombs. That's a very scary thing. So,
well, again, I can't talk to you about that. You're asking me a question. You're essentially saying, will I go in and do something? I can't talk to you about that.
They look at a coalition of ships to help, warships to help protect tankers. How close are you getting?
Well, we have a coalition for them, but they should have been up here a long time ago. And they're affected. The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not affected by this. We have twice the amount of oil as Saudi Arabia or Russia, and soon it'll be 3 times the amount. Chris, do you want to speak to that for a second?
That's correct. Our total oil production is greater than Saudi Arabia's plus Russia, and more than we consume in the United States. We're the largest.
Pretty good. You know what they call it? Drill, baby, drill.
Mr. President,
Anything else you want to say?
Well, same thing for natural gas. We went, before your first term, we were the largest exporter of natural gas in the world. Today, we're just by far the largest. We were the largest importer, now we're by far the largest exporter, and it's growing rapidly this year. New facilities are coming online, production is ramping up.
We're doing an amazing job. We get a lot of help from that man right over there. He's getting approvals done quickly and very environmental. He's an environmentalist, actually. He does a great job, but he gives you a fast approval or rejection. Do you have anything to say?
Well, back on Venezuela, where Chris and I both had a chance to be there, I literally think they're going to put a statue to President Trump. And it's not a political statement, it's an actual thing.
That would be a great honor.
No, because it's like they view President Trump like Simon Muller. He's the liberator of a country. And this is a country where they love American baseball. You look on the street, they're wearing NBA jerseys. And Delcy and her team working with us, getting back. Chris and I both experienced it was the first time in Venezuelan history that they had the free press allowed to come on to essentially where the White House, the palatial minute floors. And it was an emotional thing for people that have been for 20 years that never had a chance to be there. So whether it's and then production, showing up in production, the American companies that are
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol. This will help for youthful gene expression, help to get rid of senescent cells, soak up free radicals, improve the health of your mitochondria, and also help to improve your skin by improving the basal layer of your skin. This is a very important supplement to take to slow down the aging process. It stacks very well with the Boomer Boost and the C60. Olive leaf extract, dual purpose. It helps to boost up your immune system and helps your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. And lastly, omega-3. Very important to take every day to help with your cardiovascular health. It brings down inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. It helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Therefore, you have less plaque formation. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3, the olive leaf extract, and the resveratrol. This is a powerful stack. You're helping with your immune system, you're helping with your cardiovascular system, you're boosting up your energy levels, and you're improving your youthful gene expression. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Estimated them in a period of a week. In the first week, it was over. In the first few days, it was over. I think the Navy took us 3 days to essentially annihilate it. They weren't there. So if there's ever a big one, which I hope there's not, but if there's ever a big one, I don't think they're going to be there. And that's not fair. And we have to remember that as a country, because we spend trillions of dollars protecting Europe, protecting the countries of NATO. They weren't there for us for small time. This is small time. You know what? Venezuela is a big deal, but it's not the big one. They weren't there. So what makes you think they were there if we needed them for something? And your prime minister was not there, as you know. He was there after we won. He said, we'd like to send some ships. I said, we already won. We don't need them anymore.
But can you explain why he was reluctant?
Why what?
Why he was reluctant to help with Iran?
He didn't have to. I didn't ask him. I just said, you tell me, you know. I mean, we're always going to be there, or at least we were. I don't know about anymore, to be honest with you. I have to be honest. We were always there when they needed help. We always would have been there when they needed help. I mean, think of it. We're there to protect Europe from Russia. In theory, it doesn't affect us. We have an ocean, big, fat, beautiful ocean. But we're there to protect NATO, to protect them from Russia. But they're not there to protect us. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. I tell you, a lot of people were big NATO people. I was never big. It was okay. I got them to pay 5%. By the way, they haven't paid it yet. You know that. You know, I got them to pay 5% from 2% to 5%. They didn't pay it yet. I got them to pay up to 2% because they weren't paying the 2%. Then I got them to pay 5%, which they should be at. And we had a lot of, oh, that was great. Oh, only Trump could do it. But the problem is they haven't paid. Because if you look at the numbers, they haven't paid yet. So we were there for them, but they were not there for us. Did we need them? No. I never thought we needed them. I was more doing a test. I said, I really would love to have you come up. Bring your boats. You can sail through the beautiful Hormuz Straits, and you can protect people that are being shot at. They didn't do it. And that's small potatoes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, does it affect the state visit with the king that you're having in April? Are you looking forward to that?
With the king? No, he's a friend of mine. He's a great gentleman. As you know, he honored me and our country. He really honored our country. But we had an amazing time. I've known him as Prince Charles. I know him as King Charles. I'm proud of him. He's fighting a tough battle. He's tough. I think he's a fantastic. It has nothing to do with it's different. But he's going to be here very soon, as you know. We're going to have a state dinner. It's going to be great. But I was very disappointed when the Prime Minister said, I won't be able to. It started with the island that the indigenous have claimed away from your country. And for some reason, you went for it. And all of a sudden, indigenous people that never saw the place, they never saw it. He was afraid that we would do something to himself because he's a liberal. That's the way they think. And when we needed the island to land that beautiful B-2 bomber, we were told we can't use it. We'd have to fly back to Missouri, which is a 17-hour flight, as opposed to a couple of hours. And I said, you gotta be kidding. Not good. They made a big mistake.
Mr. President, the Friday deadline for Iran, is that pushed back now or and not?
I don't know yet. I don't know. Mr. Witkoff and JD and Jared will tell me whether or not they think it's going along. And if it's not going along, maybe not. And we have a lot of time. You know what? It's a day. In Trump time, a day, you know what it is? That's an eternity. Say what?
European Parliament just passed a major deportation plan. Some of the tenets of it are that member states can deport rejected asylum seekers to third countries regardless of whether they have a connection to it. It allows for detention periods of up to 2 years and also offshore return hubs or detention centers similar to ours.
Who did this? Who did which country?
European Parliament, and the vote was not close. It was 389 in favor to 208 against.
I'd vote with them. Yeah.
Europe is where you are now. Do you think that will move the needle with Democrats?
I don't care about the Democrats. The Democrats hate our country. The Democrats are in chaos right now. And they have no common sense. You know, they have one quality that's amazing. They stick together. And it's hard because they stick together in a ridiculous policy like men playing in women's sports, open borders for everybody, including murderers and anybody else who want it. We're open to you. Come in, murderers. You know why they do that? They do that for a couple of reasons, but they do it for votes because they think they're going to vote for the Democrats. Even though I did great with the Hispanic vote, tremendous with the Hispanic vote. You know, I turned that whole thing around. The Hispanics like me and I like them. And you know, it's interesting with the Hispanics. When I built the wall, everybody said, oh, that's going to ruin us. For the Hispanic, it was just the opposite. They know all about immigration and they know all about death and crime, and they're smart people and they have common sense. They wanted to be protected from the people that were coming into our country. So, you know, I won the election with a very tremendous Hispanic vote, and I think it's higher now than it was then. So, we're a party of common sense. The Democrats are a party of insanity. They're a party that will destroy our country. If I didn't win this election, I believe our country would have been destroyed by now. 1 year, that's all it would have taken. If you had Kamala or Sleepy Joe, either one, it wouldn't have mattered. They're the same thing. Two sleepy people, two stupid people. I believe, and by the way, Gavin Newsom, who is one of the candidates, I believe he took himself out of the running when he says he suffers from mental disability. And a reporter said it was terrible that I talked that way about somebody with mental disability. I said, I have no problem with it, but I don't want a person with mental disability to be my president. I mean, you don't want to have a person with mental disability being a president. And Gavin Newsom said that he can't read a speech. He can't do almost anything. And then he said he's as dumb as all the people in the room. And he got accused of being a racist, which was an amazing thing. I thought it was the worst interview I've ever seen anybody give. He's actually a very stupid person. So I believe he's out of the running. I think that statement, that interview, he admitted that he's a stupid person. I don't want a stupid person being president. You know, I'll say it right now. I say it because Don't Press ever reports it. I'm the only president that ever took a cognitive test. I took it 3 times. It's actually a very hard test for a lot of people. It wasn't hard for me. But it's a cognitive test. It starts off with an easy question. And by the time you get to the end, it gets tougher. By the time you get to the end, very few people can answer those questions. You get very tough mathematical equations and things. I took it 3 times. I aced it all 3 times in front of numerous doctors that I have no idea who they are. And I was told when I went in, they said, Doc Ronnie told me this. My current doctors are fantastic doctors. They said, well, if you take it, you know, it's Walter Reed. It's essentially a public hospital.
And if you do badly, it's probably gonna get out. But I aced it, I got them all right. And one doctor said, I've never seen anybody get them all right, I've been doing the test for 20 years. I want people, I would love to see anybody that's a president or a vice president, or anybody that has any chance of being a president, I would like to see them take a cognitive test. Because we had a man in this office that had no clue what was happening. And let me give you a little secret. He wasn't a smart man 30 years ago. And I'll tell you about President Obama. He wasn't a smart man either. And all about him. He wasn't a smart man. Highly overrated. He was a great divider. And our country can't go through that anymore. Can't go through. We have done an amazing job. I had to do a little stopover. I call it an excursion. I had to do a little stopover in Iran, and we had to knock the hell out of them because our country would not have been safe. The world wouldn't have been safe. I've done a great favor for the world. The world has not been reciprocal. Because when I told NATO, where we give billions and billions of dollars, trillions over the years, I said, do you mind coming up and giving us a little hand with the streets? Send up some, they didn't want to get involved. And I believe that's going to cost them dearly. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the new product that I have that will help to relieve pain for your muscles, for your joints, for headaches. Get the super strong relief. Apply it on the location of the pain topically, and it will relieve the pain within 90 seconds. It's fast acting. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the super strong relief. You apply it topically on sore muscles, sprains, joint pain, even headaches. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Also, get the vitamin D3. This will help to build denser bone, help with your cardiovascular health. It's very important to take even during the cold season. Super important. And heirloom barley. This helps to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. When you do that regularly, you're improving your immune system, your endocrine system, your brain function, cardiovascular system, even reducing problems with your joints. You'll even recover quicker after a workout because it's soaking up the free radicals and bringing down inflammation. This is a month supply. Take it every day. You can stack it with the Boomer Boost also for synergistic effects, especially controlling A1C levels. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's see here. This was 1 hour ago on Fox Business.
That's insane. I can't see your screen from here anymore.
Discover a new standard of luxury in the 2026 Infiniti QX60 from Ramsey Infiniti.
And former Navy captain and Pentagon official Brent Sadler joins me now. We want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, obviously. Does it help when the commander, the RPG, the Revolutionary Guard commander, is killed?
Absolutely. Whether or not it's an enduring change or an opening that lasts to reduced attacks on the shipping there is yet to be seen. But clearly, taking out the commander, but also very importantly, his senior staff in charge of operations, definitely will have a lot of chaos on the Iranian side to coordinate or to actually plan and execute operations in the Strait of Hormuz or elsewhere throughout the Persian Gulf. But again, this may be just a short term, unless there's more of a follow-up.
Yeah, well, I mean, would you want to be the next Revolutionary Guard's naval commander? Because it looks like the Israelis and or us are just going to keep on killing any commander who appears, right?
Well, I guess one side, the promotion rates are actually picking up, but the problem is your time in rank is probably pretty short, so absolutely not. And I think that's a good thing to break the morale and to basically isolate the IRGC. So again, the goal is to give the Iranian people an opening.
I mean, you think decapitation as a tactic works, right?
Well, when it comes to military operations, if there is someone in a group that's coordinating and planning effectively, taking them out certainly has a tactical importance beyond the political or beyond the strategic consequence. And so what you saw right here, I think, was for tactical ends to go after the folks that have been effective at executing operations in the Straits.
Okay. A senior Iranian official tells Reuters that no plans for talks between the US and Iran, quote, appear realistic at this stage, end quote. They said diplomacy has not stopped, and a path forward may still be fine. Yeah, are they just playing for time?
I think so. And again, nothing coming out of Tehran, out of the country right now, should be held in high regard or with any level of trust. And clearly, any signal coming out to try to relent on our part needs to be resisted. This is not the time to reduce or to relent on the military operations, to include the Israelis against this regime. Press on, quite frankly.
Okay. A headline from Fortune. Putin is the real winner in Trump's Iran war as it puts Russian oil back on the map. Regardless of oil, is Putin coming out as a winner here?
No, and I think they're missing the bigger picture. China's going to have to pay more for oil. Russia's maximum capacity won't meet the needs for China. Just last year, they were in excess of 13 million barrels a day. Russia can't produce anywhere near that. So the Chinese are going to be pinched to find cheaper oil elsewhere, especially now that Venezuela's off the market. Iran is now off their market. The Russians can only go so far, and while Putin might be able to make a little bit of a profit, he still has a disastrous war that's sucking every ruble into that he might earn from the oil. Key thing is to get the Turks, the Indians, to continue reducing their purchase of Russian oil at the same time.
Is this what we need to end the war? The Strait is open. There's no more uranium enrichment. And what uranium enriched they've got, we get and take it off them. Does the war end with those three things?
Well, I think it's worth repeating what I think the main thing here is. One, that whatever new regime comes in Tehran, it doesn't threaten American lives and doesn't threaten American interests in the region. And it also is a country and a regime that can live peacefully with its neighbors, to include Israel. When that day comes, then I think the war ends. But I think the military operations tempo, as there's less and less targets, will start to naturally or organically start to ebb, and the nature of the conflict will probably change. It does not mean boots on the ground, and certainly it's the opportunity for the Iranian people to take back their government. And we need to resist any efforts to try to put our hand on the tiller or the steering wheel to tell them which way to go there.
Brent Sadler, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
I'm optimizing my Amazon PPC campaigns, but I could use a little.
All right, let's play National Review and their critique on Tucker Carlson. All right, but before we do that,
hey everyone, if you've been paying
before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. This will help to rebuild your joints. It helps to use the materials like collagen type 2 and glucosamine to help to remodel the cartilage, acan and chondroitin to help to cushion the joint. It also helps to block the pain by blocking Ep4, and this helps to reduce the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13 enzymes. So take the collagen to help to remodel your joints, either because of arthritis, getting older, sports injury. You'll benefit from taking the collagen. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. You could stack this with the collagen, which is a powder, to get added synergistic benefits. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Attention to Tucker Carlson, you've probably heard him say something like this recently.
I am a no-toxin Zionist. I don't want any country to be destroyed at all, and I don't want people to die, particularly ones who committed no crime, because I don't believe in killing innocents, period. That's the basis of Western civilization. Eastern civilization is a whole different view. They believe in collective punishment. I don't.
I'm Chris Lowry at National Review, and that was Carlson in an interview with The Economist talking about this kind of Christian universalism that he's been talking about a lot lately, which is really a way for him to pivot off of Israel in particular and the Jews in general. So I'm going to do three things in this video. One, talk a little bit about how the basis of this idea is wholly erroneous and in fact is a heresy if you follow it to its logical conclusion. Carlson calls Christian Zionists heretics, but this is a well-established heresy that he is getting at here. Two, talk about the perverse application of this idea, and then finally the larger agenda at work. But first, let's hear some more from Carlson on this notion.
You commit a crime, we don't throw your kids in jail. We don't execute your cousins. We don't commit genocide against your whole tribe. We punish you because you did it. We treat each person as an individual. That is Western civilization. That's a Christian understanding. It does not derive from any other religion.
Now, of course, no one thinks we should put innocent people's children in jail or execute people's cousins for no reason or commit genocides, right? No one thinks that. So this is a commonsensical view that Carlson is outlining. So where does it kind of get his punch? What is he getting at? Well, we've heard it at the end of that clip. It comes from Christianity and not any other religion. What does he mean by that? What other religion might he be thinking of? Well, here's a hint and a response from Carlson to something Mark Levin said about the war in Gaza.
25 years ago in this country, people didn't talk that way. They didn't. It was a different landscape, different expectations. The idea of blood guilt, because that's what he's describing there, you should be killed by virtue of who your parents are, who your grandparents were, by virtue of how you were born. You should be killed. You don't have a right to live.
No.
You're guilty because you were born.
No, that's not what's going on. The thing is that if you have a society that is supporting Hezbollah or Hamas, that society should be killed. There was a society supporting Hitler, and we killed him. There's a society supporting the theocratic regime of Iran and the IRGC. We're going to have to kill him. That's what's going on here. It's not the innocent. Now, innocent people do get killed, and part of the collateral damage, that's part of war. But the thing is that if you're going after a group, if you're going after a country, and the citizens are backing the negative externalities of that country, then they're fair game. I mean, this is just playing right into America first pacifism. And this plays right into the game of exactly what Nietzsche said. You have slavery morality, you have the priests and their morality, and then you have master morality. And he said that slavery morality is rooted in Christianity, that you will see individuals within Christianity that will be weak and not willing to fight. The pacifists.
The collective punishment and genocide, that's the basis of genocide, right there, that attitude. That was considered totally un-Christian and un-American because it is. And if someone said something like that on television, I mean, he'd be probably pulled off the air for that. You should kill kids because you don't like your parents? Yeah. That is their attitude. That's really
First of all, he's going to tell you about philosophy. Fucker never even graduated from college. And guess what? You know, there's this idea of suicide empathy and how this ultra-liberalism and liberals in general, you know, want to be apologetic. Oh, America's bad. You know, we were colonizing. Oh, there was slavery years ago and blah, blah, blah. And there's inequality. This is exactly what Nietzsche was warning everybody about the slavery morality. And he had a very terse critique of Christianity. Nietzsche was right here. This is an example of what Nietzsche was saying. You got Tucker, who is a large channel now, pushing America First pacifism, not America First domination. There's nothing wrong with being an empire. There's nothing wrong with marching into Gaul and killing your enemies. There's nothing wrong about, seeing virtues within Caesar. There's nothing wrong with it. And he's saying, well, no, we need to be isolationists. Well, what about what Nietzsche warned us about the slavery morality? And how individuals within the Christian sect will have a tendency at the aggregate to start going down this road of, well, we can't fight and we can't, we have to help all the ones in need. And there's this over empathy. And then all of a sudden, then there is a suicidal empathy. And what do we mean by that? Take a look at what's going on with how people are looking at Muslims. The United States is a Christian nation, mostly. It's not a Jewish nation. It's not a Muslim nation. It's mostly a Christian nation. All right? Now, there's a wide spectrum of ones that actually practice a religion, but it's a Christian nation. And you have 50% roughly of the population that is having this suicidal empathy. Well, you got to be empathetic for, the trans. You have to be empathetic for the Muslims. You have to be empathetic for the ones that can't compete as well as others. You have to be empathetic and be more understanding that, not everybody is capable. And so therefore you have to have a lot of these social programs. You have to give and be apologetic. That's exactly what Nietzsche warned people about. And the root of it is this empathy within Christianity. They have a tendency to be pacifists. Now, that doesn't mean all Christians are pacifists, but if there's enough within the society, even if they're not religious, you'll have this over empathy within the society. We have that today. People are afraid to say something against people using pronouns, what their pronouns are. You have people afraid to push back when you see too much ultra-liberalism. People are afraid to actually kill off the theocratic regime in Iran. Slavery morality. Why did Nietzsche call it slavery morality? Because the morality that they hold to with this empathy that's rooted in their religion is what enslaves them. That's Tucker Carlson right there.
Attitude. We're paying for that. So here's Carlson saying, who does believe in collective punishment, this anti-Christian idea, this anti-Western idea, Israel and people like Mark Levin, the Jews. And Carlson has gotten at this point in a more elemental way in how he talks about the Old Testament.
That's not the message of the Old Testament, which I read last year and was pretty shocked by, as I think many people who read it are, shocked by the violence in it and shocked by the revenge in it, the genocide in it.
Now, Carlson has expanded on this.
That's what the humans are. That goes to the very essence of humans. It's not varnished. It's not slavery empathy. It's true darkness of mankind, the good and the bad. So if you're starting to read the New Testament and it's just whitewashed, then you can see in how the slavery morality can take hold. You got to be apologetic. You got to turn the other cheek. You got to let someone walk over you because you're a slave now.
He had when he apparently read the Bible for the first time that bad things happened in the Old Testament. And he's explained how the New Testament morality is a stark contrast to the morality in the Old Testament. And what he's getting at there is driving a wedge between the New Testament and the Old Testament. And if you follow that to its logical conclusion, it is a heresy that was condemned long ago, associated with a guy named Marcion from the 2nd century AD, who said the New Testament and Old Testament.
The reality of the situation is that you don't have a New Testament unless you have the Old Testament. All right? But don't fall in the trap of suicidal empathy. Because your enemies, that's what they want. They want you to have suicidal empathy. They want you to have this slavery morality. Nietzsche warned us, and no one listened. But Tucker is such an intellectual. Tucker is so smart. He didn't finish college. He's part of the Swanson family. No one knows even if he works for the CIA. He's so smart.
Gods were different. The Old Testament God was inferior to the loving and forgiving New Testament God. And this was condemned by the church fathers and many other figures and church councils out of the gate. Let's go through the roll call. This approach was
But Tucker is going to be your preacher now because he's got a big channel. He's a podcaster. Didn't finish college. Came from a well-to-do family, the Swansons. Maybe he works for the CIA, no one knows. But he's going to be your preacher now. He's going to tell you what the Old Testament and the New Testament says because he read the Old Testament once. Well, what about all the Jews that read it every year? Don't you think that they would know a little bit more? I would think so. But, Tucker, who started his career in a bow tie, and then all of a sudden he ended up using a regular tie on Fox, and then all of a sudden now he's an outdoorsman as a podcaster. Don't you find this a little odd? Don't you find that where's the real Tucker? Seems like he's being packaged like some sort of consumer product. What do I know?
And rebutted by Justin the Martyr, also dating from the 2nd century, Irenaeus, Tertullian, who wrote a tract called Against Marcion, Origen, Augustine of Hippo, of course we know famously. Then you have a bunch of church councils, Council of Nicaea that affirms the unity of God, the Council of Carthage that affirms the canon of Scripture, which includes the Old Testament, the Fourth Lateran Council says God is unchanging and one, the Council of Trent during the Reformation, also reaffirming the Old Testament. And medieval times, we have Thomas Aquinas also condemning this, Martin Luther during the Reformation, John Calvin during the Reformation. Now that's quite the roll call, and we could have kept going. There are different ways these Christian thinkers, by the way, have interpreted these passages that so disturb Tucker Carlson. Some will say, well, look, God had to communicate with people, kind of meet them where they were in ancient times when no one had a sophisticated understanding of human rights such that we would accept today. Others say, look, God's punishments are inherently just wherever you go, whatever interpretation you accept. The fundamental fact is that what Carlson is getting at here is profoundly wrong. You can't separate the New Testament from the Old Testament. You can't take on one side, the Christian Bible, and then the Jewish Bible that is ugly and mean and nasty. No, that is an offense against Christianity itself and is a heresy.
The reality of the situation was Jesus was Jewish. He laid tefillin. He wore a tallis. He kept kosher. Don't you wonder why Christians today don't do that anymore? Oh, you don't need to follow the Old Testament anymore and all of its edicts. No, you're special.
Carlson goes more specifically on an episode from the Old Testament to attack Bibi Netanyahu. He talked about this in his contentious interview with Ambassador Mike Huckabee a couple weeks ago.
And I want to refer you very.
I'm Alex Manos, and I buy classic cars in any condition nationwide, and I always pay top dollar. My team and I are on the hunt every day for European sports cars, luxury cars, and many, many more.
A couple weeks ago.
And I want to refer you very specifically to a number of speeches the Prime Minister, your friend Benjamin Netanyahu, gave in the aftermath of October 7th, including one in November of that year, when he referred to Amalek. Now, Amalek is a reference, a biblical reference. Of course, you'll be very familiar with that. The Amalekites were a tribe described throughout the Bible, particularly in 1 Samuel, that obstructed the Jews as they fled Egypt. And God tells Samuel to give the instructions to Saul to kill the Amalekites. Mm-hmm. And he says, and I'm sure you remember this is in 1 Samuel 15, of course, I know you know it. He says, kill the men, kill the women, kill the children, kill the infants, kill the donkeys, kill the camels, kill everything.
Now, Carlson's not making up what the Bible says about the Amalek.
When you have an enemy, sometimes you have to do absolute destruction. That's what that means. But it gets a little deeper. Tucker, sit down. I know you watch. All right? I know you watch the channel. So just sit down and just listen. Amalek also is metaphysical. When you are spiritually weak, because what did Amalek do? He attacked the weak, the ones that were behind in the caravan. And so you can apply this from a metaphysical point of view also, that you will have a weakness where you're not being able to fulfill all of your religious obligations, and you start to lose faith or you start to get lazy about things. And the key is to kill off that urge in all of its offspring. But you're not as smart as I am, Tucker. Not even close. Because you can't see the nuance. You can't see the depth. Couldn't see it in COVID. Can't see it with Iran. And you sure as hell can't see it in the Old Testament.
Making still a malicious and dishonest point. Get to that in a second. But we hear about the Amalek in Samuel, as Carlson notes, also in Deuteronomy, elsewhere. Now, there are various ways to interpret this episode. Again, you shouldn't go to me for the correct interpretation. I don't know enough to know, but we have Maimonides, the famous Jewish thinker, saying, well, the Jews have to give a chance to the Amalek to repent and make peace before they attack. You have another school of thought that the tribes and nations have been dispersed, so this injunction against the Amalek no longer applies. Then you have various Jewish theologians and Christian theologians interpreting it all symbolically. The Amalek stand for sin and sinfulness that has to be stamped out. But regardless, throughout Jewish history, the Amalek have been a symbol of unceasing evil hostility to the Jews. And it is that context we have to understand.
Some evil has to be killed. Now you go into the Zohar and it's talking about soul roots. I've been saying this for 2 years, 3 years. The soul roots are what we are seeing playing out on Al Jazeera and all of these shows that I've been doing on a daily basis. Jacob is battling Esau. Esau divides. The negative Esau is attached to Satan because of the energy that Satan needs so he doesn't die. Satan is dying. Now, when Esau repents, it splits. There's a positive Esau for the soul root and a negative Esau of the soul root. Jacob's soul root, Ishmael's soul root, and the positive of Esau's soul root band together and actually kill negative Esau. That is what we are seeing on our plane. It was written down thousands of years ago. It's playing out. You have to kill Esau. You have to kill the negative side. This is Amalek. You have to kill it all. Because anything left means that there's an attachment of Satan to it. But Tucker has attached himself to slavery morality, brought to you by Nietzsche, and has suicidal empathy now. So Tucker represents keep Amalek alive. Tucker represents keep Satan alive. Come on. Why is this?
Netanyahu's reference that Carlson is making so much of. So let's take a look at that. So Netanyahu did indeed give a speech in October 2023 where he said the entire people and the leadership of the people of Israel, embrace them, meaning the country's soldiers, and believe in them. Remember what Amalek did to you. From Deuteronomy, we remember and we fight. Now, does that seem so terrible? No, it actually doesn't.
But also in Deuteronomy, that's Moses' warning to the Jews. Follow the Torah, follow the commandments, don't be fearful, and everything will be okay. You don't, and bad things will happen to you. And because Jews didn't follow the advice of Moses, there was the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, the loss of the ark, and the diaspora. So that's the bigger context of Deuteronomy. Let's just not take one line and, you got to look at the whole context. You got to kill evil. Because if you don't kill off evil, it's going to find a way to erode your good. But we're talking about an extreme situation here. Extreme. Not everybody you disagree with is evil. Not everybody you disagree with is Amalek. But we're living in biblical times now. I mean, you really think that the Iranian strategy is the strategy of positive Esau or negative Esau? Do you think the strategy of the Iranians bombing their neighbors, their so-called brothers of the GCC, is a strategy of positive Esau or negative Esau? I mean, be honest. Obviously, negative Esau. And where is the attachment of Satan? On negative Esau. So by killing off Esau, negative, you're also killing off Satan. Now, isn't it just really weird on how the theocratic regime of Iran is basically saying, we're going to fight Satan. We're going to fight the greater Satan and the lesser Satan. We got to kill them. See, this is the great battle that was written down for thousands of years. It's happening now. Now, what's strange is that we're even living through this. There's some metaphysical reason why that I don't have time to explain it. But the thing is that we are living through these times of cleansing negative Esau out of the world. But Tucker knows better. He's a drunk. He read the Old Testament once, and he's going to tell you how things are.
Your ears being awful does it, is not citing Samuel, the verses that Carlson was talking about there with Huckabee, but Deuteronomy. It's not about fighting and smiting. It's about memory. That is a verse quoted by Jews all the time. We see it associated with Holocaust memorials because the emphasis, the action is remembering. It is memory. And by the way, it's a hideous distortion beyond just getting wrong what verse Netanyahu was citing. It's a hideous distortion of the larger context of what he was talking about in that speech. It wasn't a speech about committing genocide against the population of Gaza. It was about destroying Hamas. This is the second stage of the war, he said, the goals of which are clear: destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and bringing the captives back home. Then he goes on to say, whoever dares to accuse our soldiers of war crimes are hypocritical liars who lack so much as one drop of morality. The IDF is the most moral army in the world. The IDF does everything to avoid harming non-combatants. I again call on the civilian population to evacuate to a safe area in the southern Gaza Strip. So to portray that speech as some sort of biblically mandated call for genocide is insane and disgraceful. But what about this Christian universalism of Tucker Carlson, who believes so strongly, supposedly, there's no such thing as collective guilt. There shouldn't be collective punishment. We shouldn't be taking innocent lives. Ideals that all of us believe in. He spends show after show arguing that the Israelis haven't lived up to this Christian ideal, basically can't live up to this Christian ideal. At least that's the implication. But what else is going?
First of all, why are Jews trying to live up to any Christian ideal? Jews only live to Jewish ideals. That's like asking for a Christian to live to Jewish ideals or a Christian to live to Muslim ideals.
Around the world, well, there's this. So as you might have gathered, that was a Russian drone attack on a Ukrainian city. Nothing particularly unusual about it. This kind of thing has happened almost every single day since Russia launched the war, indiscriminately targeting Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure. If there's anything that's collective punishment, it is this. Ukrainians are being punished for the offense of simply being the Ukrainians. This war violates every injunction that Carlson talks about so much. So what is he doing? Is he inveighing against this war, constantly doing everything he can to stop it, shaming Vladimir Putin and quoting Bible verses at him and interviewing pro-Russian officials and advocates to try to shame them into changing their position and highlighting how absurd they are? No, if anything, he's been on the other side, making excuses for Russia and smearing Ukraine and Ukrainian leaders. So this just goes to how the agenda, it's all about the Jewish state and animus and hostility to Jews, or at least to Judaism. So this is a hideous agenda, and to use Bible verses to try to advance it is even more reprehensible. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.
Something strange about Tucker. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Don't be a Tucker. Make sure you get the supplements so your brain function works properly, so you can actually be a productive citizen in the United States instead of a Carlson Tucker. Now he's an outdoorsman. Starts his career in a bow tie, is a frat brat, coming from a well-to-do family, didn't finish college, and then all of a sudden he's an outdoorsman telling you how things are because he read the Old Testament once. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. C60 has to be suspended in oil for proper absorption. You can get an MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, and extra virgin olive oil. You can get a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day, preferably on an empty stomach. And when you're doing that every day, what's going to happen is that you're going to be soaking up free radicals. And by soaking up free radicals, you're reducing stress in your tissues and in your cells. You're bringing down inflammation, and you're also improving the health of your mitochondria. When you do that, you're going to improve your energy levels. You're going to have more ATP, so your cells are performing properly, your organ systems are performing properly, your immune system will perform properly, your endocrine system will be in homeostasis, your cardiovascular health will improve. You're going to be reducing inflammation at the vascular level. You're reducing free radicals at the vascular level. You're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL, so there's less plaque formation. And you're helping the health of your neurons, so you'll have better neuroplasticity. You're going to have this positive neuroplasticity, so you're going to be able to think better. Your memory will improve. If you're doing balancing exercises and stretching exercises, what you'll notice is that your balancing will improve. Why? Because your nerves are healthier. And when you're balancing, you're activating that cerebellum. And by activating that cerebellum regularly, you're being able to get your body to coordinate better. So your cerebellum is helping with the balancing, but it's also communicating to the other areas of your brain that control your limbs, your muscles for your limbs. So you're activating and coordinating and stimulating those neural connections. So it's really important. A little bit of resistance training, a little bit of cardio, balancing exercises and stretching exercises. These are all important because it's activating the nerves, activating the cerebellum, activating certain areas of your brain. In conjunction with taking the C60, you're bringing down inflammation, you're soaking up those free radicals. So you're going to have healthier nerves and neural connections. So you don't turn into a Tucker, because obviously Tucker lost some brain cells with all the alcohol you drink. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. And when you do that, you're also improving the basal layer of your skin, and you will look younger. This stacks really well with resveratrol, especially for the skin. Thank you for listening. That's the end of my broadcast. The bottom line is this: we are still in a danger zone in terms of what could happen in the Middle East and how it may affect financial markets. If this continues on in the Middle East, it may affect actually agriculture, agricultural yields, the cost of food stuff. So it's really important to pay attention. I will see you in the next broadcast. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.